Chapter 384. At 10 o'clock in the morning, Ouyang Shuo summoned the officials of Cliff Mountain City to announce Tian Wenjing's appointment. After completing the handover in Nanpu, by 33 would return to Shanghai City and continue to work as a secretary. The experience in Cliff Mountain City would become one of his most precious treasures. To show his support for Tian Wenjing, Ouyang Shuo did not live in the government office, but went to live in the Lord's Mansion. Although the town-level Lord's Mansion was simple, it was not a problem for him to live there for a while. Ouyang Shuo was not a person who was greedy for pleasure. Walking into the Lord's Mansion, Sun Xiaoye, Lin Jing, and Love Thread happened to be there. Seeing the 4 guards behind Ouyang Shuo, Lin Jing raised her eyebrows and said mockingly, "Brat, you're getting more and more arrogant." Ouyang Shuo could only remain silent. After all, she was his elder. Deep down, Ouyang Shuo enjoyed the lesson from his aunt. As his status rose, few people dared to be so presumptuous in front of him. It was lonely at the top. Love Thread was amused. The mysterious Marquis of Lian Province, in the eyes of others, was no different from an ordinary person at this moment. He was just a junior who was being scolded by his elder. Ouyang Shuo dismissed the guards and sat opposite his aunt. "Have you cleared the Southern Mountain Grotto heaven?" "Soon." At the mention of this, little aunt also frowned. Thinking about the past 2 months of pioneering, it was an unforgettable experience. After all, the 3 guilds took turns pioneering, which was different from the baleful blood mercenary group. Although 2 months had passed, the Southern Mountain Grotto heaven had not been cleared. However, from his aunt's words, the pioneering had entered a critical period. If nothing went wrong, they would be able to clear it within a week. It was still unknown who would emerge victorious. Although the 3 guilds were allies, they were competitors when it came to pioneering. They were very secretive about their respective pioneering progress. His aunt's expression showed that she was very confident. Ouyang Shuo paid attention to the pioneering progress, which was closely related to his next plan. Once the Southern Mountain Grotto heaven was cleared, it would be officially open to adventure-type players. The first batch of players would be mainly members of the 3 guilds. In addition, some small teams would be selected to enter Cliff Province. At the same time, in order to strengthen their control over Cliff Mountain City, the Military Intelligence Division and the Black Snake Guard set up intelligence stations in Cliff Mountain City. Every movement in Cliff Mountain City was closely monitored by the 2 intelligence agencies. Ouyang Shuo turned his head to look at the love silk knot and asked with a smile, "Master Qing, have you adapted to the Cliff State?" He had spent so much effort to lure a thread to the Cliff Prefecture, but Ouyang Shuo, the master, only showed up a month later. It was indeed somewhat unreasonable. The love knot didn't mind. She nodded and said, "It's better than I thought." 1 thread had already taken root in Cliff State. With the huge amount of money raised from the sale of the property in the capital, it invested in the construction of dozens of shops and various workshops in Cliff Mountain City. It also operated 4 manors and 2 farms outside the city. Their investment in Cliff Mountain City was even crazier than the major chambers of commerce. A thread filtered out the remaining 10,000 guild members. Not only were they loyal and reliable, but they were also skilled talents above the intermediate level, filling the gap in Cliff Mountain City where there was a lack of skilled talents. The current, a thread, was a force that could not be ignored in Cliff Mountain City. As for rare materials, one was to purchase them from the elite groups, and the other was to purchase them from the headquarters of the 3 guilds. With the continued opening of Cliff Mountain City, rare materials would no longer be a problem. A thread was on the road of Nirvana rebirth. Even though she had a friendship with Ouyang Shuo, the expression of the love silk knot was still indifferent. This proud and aloof woman really would not show too much of her feelings in front of others. The coldness of the love silk knot was even better than that of Baihua. The strange thing was that the love silk knot had become Sun Xiaoye's close friend. Before Cliff Mountain City was built, Sun Xiaoye did not plan to move. To be able to lead the construction of a city, for her, was undoubtedly a great sense of achievement. Towards Sun Xiaoye, Ouyang Shuo naturally would not say any words of gratitude. The 2 had gradually formed a tacit understanding between them. In the afternoon, Ouyang Shuo set off for the headquarters of the Brave Tiger Legion to inspect. Since Cliff Mountain City was on the right track, and now that Tian Wenjing was in charge, Ouyang Shuo would not interfere too much. The only thing that worried him was the elimination of the natives. He had to find Sun Bin and have a face-to-face talk about the scale. Sun Bin was a formation master, and the headquarters of the Brave Tiger Legion was also built in a strict and orderly manner, in accordance with the formation. In the military camp, apart from the troops that went out to carry out the elimination task, the rest of the people were training in their respective drill grounds. In the entire military camp, apart from the sound of training, there was no other noise. Sun Bin's strict management of the army could be seen. On the way to the commander's tent, Ouyang Shuo encountered a young soldier and almost bumped into each other. The soldier was carrying a large bag of soybeans, about 100 kilograms, as if he was going to the stable to feed the war horses. The 100 kilograms of soybeans were carried in his hands, but it was effortless, and he still walked as if he was flying. Perhaps because he was in a hurry, he did not see Ouyang Shuo coming towards him. "How dare you? How dare you offend the Marquis?" The personal guard was about to draw his sword and take the soldier down for punishment. Ouyang Shuo looked up and saw that the soldier was about 17 or 18 years old, with dark skin. He was not tall, but his body was unusually strong, like a cheetah. He could faintly feel the smell of blood and untamed wildness coming from this person. This was interesting. It was very unusual for a small soldier in the army to have such an aura. Hearing the personal guard's words, a ray of light flashed in the soldier's eyes, and even his heartbeat sped up. This was not fear but excitement. Since Ouyang Shuo had cultivated the inner canon of the Yellow Arch to the 7th level, his senses were very sharp. Although the soldier's emotional changes were obscure, he was still able to accurately detect it. It was too strange. "Marquis, please forgive me, Marquis." Only then did the soldier react, and with a plop, he knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. The official language that came out of his mouth was not smooth, as if he had just learned it not long ago. Ouyang Shuo frowned, waved his hand to stop the personal guard, and said indifferently, "Get up." "Thank you, Marquis, thank you." The soldier got up, picked up the soybeans, and quickly left. The personal guard came forward and said in a low voice, "Marquis, there's something strange about this person." Ouyang Shuo nodded and said, "Contact the military intelligence department and secretly investigate. Remember, do not alert the enemy." "Yes, Marquis." After the small interlude, Ouyang Shuo finally arrived at the commander's tent. "Marquis." Sun Bin sat in his wheelchair, cupped his fists, and bowed. Ouyang Shuo nodded and sat on the main seat. He said, "Tell me about the natives." There were two main natives on Jingzhou Island. One was the Dire Beasts, and the other was the Li tribe. Especially in the Cliff State area, the Li tribe was like a star scattered all over the island. The arrival of the Tiger Troop naturally alarmed these tribes. At first, the tribes tried to resist. Unfortunately, in front of the elite regular army, the natives were still using spears and fighting on the plains. They could not resist at all and were beaten back. Seeing that things were not going well, the tribes moved north and hid in the Five Finger Mountains. The deep mountains and forests were the natives' territory, and even Sun Bin did not dare to take the risk and barge in. The battle was in a stalemate for the time being. Fortunately, the plains alone were enough for Cliff Mountain City to establish a foothold. Therefore, Sun Bin's strategy changed again. The Tiger Troop's current mission was to clear the wild beasts and dire beasts on the plains, and at the same time train the troops. Of course, Sun Bin did not give up on the natives who retreated into the Five Finger Mountains. He frequently sent spies to the Five Finger Mountains to investigate the enemy's situation and to prepare for the next step of the military operation. The Li tribe was indeed the king of the mountains. Even the elite spies sent by the Military Intelligence Bureau often got lost in the Five Finger Mountains or were subdued by the natives' traps. There were already more than 30 spies sacrificed in the Five Finger Mountains, and it was heart-wrenching. According to the military organization, a division was only equipped with one scout company. The Tiger Troop spies added up to only 200 people. The sacrifice could not be said to be small. The Five-Finger Mountains had almost become a forbidden area. Fortunately, Sun Bin's first plan failed, so he came up with another one. In the previous battlefield on the plains, the Tiger Troop had already conquered dozens of Li Tribe tribes and captured more than 30,000 Li Tribe citizens, all of whom were escorted to Cliff Mountain City. More than 80% of the captives were sent to the large manors or farms to work. The remaining 15%, a total of 5,000 people, were all young and strong. They were singled out by Sun Bin and prepared to be reorganized into an army. According to Sun Bin's strategy, he wanted to use the Li Tribe's youths to train a strong army for mountain warfare and prepare to use the Li Tribe's warriors to fight against the Li Tribe's warriors. It had to be said that this plan was very bold. If it was not for Ouyang Shuo giving Sun Bin the power to make decisions on the spot before he left, Sun Bin would not dare to do this. It should be known that increasing the size of the army had to be proposed by the Military Intelligence Bureau and then reported to Ouyang Shuo for approval. Because Jingzhou Island was isolated overseas and Sun Bin was a divine general, Ouyang Shuo gave him the power. It was not a simple matter to tame the Li Tribe's youths. How to ensure that the trained mountain troops were loyal and reliable was even more of a problem. Since Sun Bin had a card up his sleeve, Ouyang Shuo could only wait and see. Ouyang Shuo suddenly thought of the soldier he met just now. Could it be that he was a Li Tribe youth? At this moment, the personal guard who had left came into the tent, reporting to the Marquis that soldier's identity has been investigated. He is a Li Tribe youth who was newly recruited into the army. It was as he had expected. Seeing the puzzled look on Sun Bin's face, Ouyang Shuo briefly explained what had happened just now. The Marquis means that this person's identity is not simple. Sun Bin was very smart. From the Marquis's expression, he could roughly guess what was going on. With the Marquis's temperament, if it was just an ordinary soldier, he would definitely not make such a big fuss. Let's wait and see. Ouyang Shuo did not express his opinion. He turned to the personal guard and said, General Sun will be in charge of the following investigation. This kind of matter was not difficult for Sun Bin. Yes, sir. To be continued. Chapter 385. Ouyang Shuo left the military camp and returned to Cliff Mountain City. That night, Ouyang Shuo hosted a banquet in the Lord's Mansion to entertain the representatives of the various factions in Cliff Mountain City. Among them were the elite group leaders of the three big guilds, the higher-ups of a thread, and other players. There were also the presidents of the big merchant groups, and even the leaders of the Li Tribe who surrendered. In addition, there was the group of civil officials led by Tian Wenjing and the generals led by Sun Bin. Taking advantage of the banquet, Ouyang Shuo pushed Tian Wenjing onto the stage. More importantly, through the banquet, Ouyang Shuo sent a clear signal to all parties. Cliff Mountain City would continue to adhere to the open and inclusive territorial policy to reassure the hearts of all parties. Before this, Cliff Mountain City had always been managed by Non-Pu, and there wasn't even a title. As the saying went, if one's name wasn't right, one's words wouldn't be justified. The major forces could not help but have some doubts, worried that something would happen to Cliff Mountain City in the future. Now, the Marquis Ouyang Shuo had personally stated his position, immediately winning the applause of the audience. In the banquet that night, Ouyang Shuo became the absolute protagonist. The various great powers repeatedly came forward and toasted Ouyang Shuo with the intention of making friends with him. Ouyang Shuo handled such an occasion skillfully and easily, and he chatted freely while the host and guest enjoyed themselves. The next day, Ouyang Shuo was immersed in various ribbon-cutting ceremonies and banquets. After receiving the signal released by Marquis Lianzhou, all the chambers of commerce were extremely excited, and they came to invite Marquis Lianzhou to attend the ribbon-cutting ceremony of their stores. Even the shops that had already opened for business had to hold another grand ribbon-cutting ceremony. Even the cold and arrogant love thread had to personally invite Ouyang Shuo to attend the ribbon-cutting ceremony of One Thread, its largest general store, One Thread, under the repeated instigation of the guild members. The members of One Thread worshipped Ouyang Shuo very much. The scene that had taken place in the Jingdo Square was still unforgettable. It was simply too shocking. Needless to say, the Star Alliance had recently fallen into a bitter battle and was on the verge of collapse. It no longer had its former glory. Needless to say, all of this was naturally because the Marquis of Lian province was standing up for them from behind the scenes. Most of the members of One Thread were women, so one could imagine how lively the ribbon-cutting ceremony would be. Ouyang Shuo fell into a sea of pink and was surrounded by a group of girls. The girls were really too enthusiastic. They asked Ouyang Shuo to sign autographs and take pictures with him. Some of them were bold and unrestrained. They directly asked for hugs and kisses, causing Ouyang Shuo to be embarrassed. Once a girl went crazy, it was really too scary. Players had the ability to take photos. Ouyang Shuo didn't dare to imagine how jealous Song Jia would be if these photos were uploaded to the forums. He asked for help from the love thread buckle, but this woman just stood at the side and watched the fun. Ouyang Shuo was so angry that he clenched his teeth. In the end, Ouyang Shuo was only able to flee in a sorry state under the protection of his personal guards that risked their lives. Wow, Brother Wui is so handsome. Yeah, he's so cool even when he's escaping. I love him to death. After Ouyang Shuo heard this, he staggered and ran even faster. During the day, he would attend the ribbon-cutting ceremony, and, at night, he would invite the Marquis of Lian province to their residences. The extravagance of the banquet was even better than that of the Lord's mansion. Delicacies from land and sea, fine wine, and delicacies were the standard. All kinds of singing and dancing performances and other entertainment programs were the real finale, and each one was more carefully prepared than the last. Among the businessmen, they liked to compare. There were competitions on singers, creativity, and costumes. There were all kinds of strange things, and there were all kinds of competitions. Some even directly asked the headquarters for help, and through the teleportation array, they invited famous singers in the capital to add to the fun. Ouyang Shuo didn't refuse any of these. He was determined to carry out this method of winning people's hearts to the end. Seeing the Marquis of Lian province in high spirits, some of the businessmen became bolder. For example, after the banquet, a medium-sized Xuanzhou Chamber of Commerce secretly arranged a stunning beauty for Ouyang Shuo to sleep with him. Looking at the petite beauty in front of him, he would be lying if he said he wasn't tempted. Heaven pitied him. Ouyang Shuo was still a boy. How could he resist such temptation? But when he thought of the tigress at home, the fire in Ouyang Shuo's heart was mostly extinguished. He had no choice but to bear the pain and refuse the goodwill of the Chamber of Commerce. That night, Ouyang Shuo had a rare insomnia. The next day, Sun Xiaya learned about this matter from her personal guard. The little girl didn't say anything and rejected the land application of the Chamber of Commerce on the same day. When the president of the Chamber of Commerce heard the news, he wanted to cry, but had no tears. In the following days, no other Chamber of Commerce dared to do such an out-of-line thing. Amidst the bustle, 5 days passed in the blink of an eye. According to Ouyang Shuo's plan, he planned to stay in Cliff Mountain City for about a week. After calming the hearts of the people, he would return to Shanghai City and take charge of the headquarters. Thunder Province, Chiyu City, Taiping Heavenly Kingdom. Next, Shanghai City had to face opponents one after another. Leaving the headquarters for a long time really made Ouyang Shuo a little worried. Unexpectedly, Ouyang Shuo suddenly received a message from Song Jia. After more than 3 months, Song Jia's experience officially came to an end, and she was on the way back. Not only that, the fortuitous encounter mission, the Legend of the Five Fingers Mountain, was really completed by Song Jia. It had to be said that sometimes, when luck came, it couldn't be stopped. According to legend, Ali and Wu Mai had 5 children, and they farmed half a mu of land. Their days were very difficult. One night, Ali dreamed of a white-haired immortal old man. The immortal old man said, "There's a treasure hoe and a treasure sword buried under the ground near your cottage. Quickly dig them out." The next day, according to the immortal old man's instructions, they really dug out the treasure hoe and the treasure sword. They used the sword to cut down the trees, and used the hoe to clear the land. They planted crops, and their days became better. Many years later, Ali passed away. The son followed his mother's wishes and buried the treasure sword with his father. The bad guy Yue spread the news to the pirates. These guys gathered hundreds of people and took over Ali's family's land. They even killed Wu Mai and captured the 5 brothers. Yue chained the 5 brothers to iron chains and tortured them for 10 days and 10 nights, forcing them to tell him where the treasure sword was buried. However, none of the 5 brothers were willing to say anything, and they were all killed in the end. The 5 brothers' heroic actions moved the bears, leopards, ants, bees, and birds that lived in the area. They gathered in groups and killed Yue and the pirates. The animals moved a large amount of soil and stones, built 5 tall tombs, and buried the 5 brothers inside. These 5 tombs were originally called the 5 Suns Mountain, and because they looked like 5 fingers pointing to the sky, they were also called the 5 Fingers Mountain. On New Year's Eve, Song Jia broke into Ali's house. At that time, Ali had not passed away yet. Song Jia did not trigger the mission, so she did not know that the family she was staying in had a powerful background. Song Jia just used this family as a temporary stronghold. Every time she trained, Song Jia would return to Ali's house to rest. Just a week ago, Ali suddenly passed away. As a result, the legend of the 5 Fingers Mountain mission was officially launched. If Song Jia had left a step earlier, she might have missed the adventure. What happened next was almost a copy of Wu Mingji's previous life. Song Jia relied on her superb martial arts skills to beat the pirates into a sorry state. After driving away the pirates, the family gave Song Jia a treasure sword to thank her for saving their lives. According to Song Jia, she also found 2 treasures from the pirates' bodies, which was a great harvest. As for what they were, Song Jia kept it a secret. Ouyang Shua simply waited for Song Jia's return in Cliff Mountain City. On the 8th of May, Song Jia returned to Cliff Mountain City. When Song Jia left, it was still early spring, and Cliff Mountain City had not yet been built. When she came back, it was already summer in Cliff Province, and Cliff Mountain City had already been built. After the experience of the 5 Fingers Mountain, Song Jia's temperament had changed. She was like a sharp sword out of its sheath, showing off its edge and making people fearful. A young heroine of the generation had officially set foot in Jianghu. Ouyang Shua also noticed that the sword at Song Jia's waist had been changed. The previous Qing Feng sword had been replaced by another treasure sword. As soon as they met, Ouyang Shua had no intention of asking about the treasure sword. They hadn't seen each other for a long time, so the 2 of them were naturally affectionate. At this time, no one was stupid enough to disturb them. After the affectionate moment, Song Jia finally showed her jealousy. She glanced at Ouyang Shua lightly and said casually, "Wui, recently, a playboy appeared on the forum. Do you know who he is?" Ouyang Shua's heart sank when he heard that. As he expected, the girls of One Thread uploaded the photos of the ribbon-cutting ceremony to the forum, which caused a sensation. A group of girls surrounded Ouyang Shua, and it was impossible not to be amazed. Because of this matter, Brother Wui's fan group was so jealous that they even declared war on One Thread on the forum. The girls of One Thread were not good at fighting, but they were very good at quarreling, so they immediately fought back. The 2 sides quarreled back and forth, and they were very happy. Because Ouyang Shua's fame was too great, this news of love affairs naturally spread throughout the China region. In the end, everyone knew about it. Song Jia could not pay attention to it, even if she didn't want to. As the person involved, Ouyang Shua could only remain silent. He also knew that these girls actually didn't mean any harm. It was just a little girl's prank. He really couldn't blame any of them. If Ouyang Shua came forward and solemnly clarified the matter on the forum, it would be somewhat wishful thinking. Jia, listen to my explanation." Ouyang Shua was about to explain, but Song Jia suddenly stretched out her white and tender fingers and covered his mouth seductively. She said with a smile, "Idiot, I'm just teasing you. Don't you trust me?" Ouyang Shua was speechless. He was being teased by this girl again. Seeing Ouyang Shua's dazed expression, Song Jia giggled, tender and charming. "You dare to tease your husband. See how I'll deal with you." Ouyang Shua decided to restore his authority as a husband, and suddenly pounced on Song Jia. P.S. What will Ouyang Shua do to Song Jia? Listen to the next breakdown. To be continued. Chapter 386. Thank you, South of Rosy Clouds, for the reward. Congratulations on being promoted to the first elder of this book. 33. At the same time, thank you, Smoke and Fire Demon, for the 20,000 reward. Thank you. Ouyang Shua pounced on Song Jia, hugged her, and tickled her. Song Jia was very ticklish and immediately begged for mercy. Ha Wui, I was wrong. Haha, I won't do it again. Call me husband. Husband, haha, I really won't do it again. After playing around, the two of them were already disheveled. The next day, Song Jia showed Ouyang Shua what she had gained from this trip. First was the reward of the legend of the Five Fingers Mountain, one of the 10 famous swords, the Chun Jun sword. Name, Chun Jun sword, divine weapon. Hardness, 87 sharpness, 85 toughness, 84 characteristics. Edge breaker, when the weapon's hardness is lower than the Chun Jun sword, there's a chance that it will be cut in half by the Chun Jun sword. Unique item, cannot be dropped, cannot be traded. Killing skill, hibiscus rising from the water, releases a noble and unparalleled sword energy, like the movement of the stars, flashes a deep light, and kills invisibly and unavoidable. Cooldown time, 1 week. Evaluation. The Chun Jun sword is a noble and unparalleled sword. Looking at its blade, it is like a row of stars. Looking at its light, it is like water overflowing into a pond. Looking at its fracture, it is like a rock. Looking at its talent, it is like melting ice. When this sword was made, the mountain of Qijin broke out of tin. The stream of Rui dried up and gave out copper. The rain master swept, the thunder god struck. The flood dragon held a furnace. The celestial emperor filled the charcoal. The Tai temple, the heavenly essence descended. The second was the spirit disk that Song Jia caught in the Five Fingers Mountain, the golden spotted swallowtail butterfly. In order to catch this spirit disk that she named Xiao Jin, Song Jia waited in the jungle for 5 days and 5 nights. If it weren't for the support of the military ration pill, Song Jia would not have succeeded. Name, golden spotted swallowtail butterfly, spirit beast. Level, 68 skills. Illusion, instantly causes the enemy to fall into an illusion, lasts for 30 seconds. Heal, can stop bleeding and remove clots, and quickly restore physical and energy. Combat power, 120 evaluation. The golden spotted swallowtail butterfly has a graceful posture and is the queen of butterflies. The scales on its wings flickered with a faint green light, and there was an arc-shaped golden-green stripe on each of its forewings. There were a few golden patches in the center of its hind wings, and there was a crescent-shaped golden spot at the back edge. The tail of its hind wings was long and slender, and there was a small section at the end that was golden. With the pure Jun sword and the golden spot swallowpecker butterfly, Song Jia could easily rank among the top 10 adventurer players. Coupled with the 9 manual and the Yu maiden swordsmanship, it was not impossible for her to get into the top 3. In the hands of Cui Tianqi and the other NPC disciples, the 9 manual only increased their skillfulness. However, in Song Jia's hands, it was the same as the Yellow Emperor's canon of the inner canon. Unlike the legendary 9 Sutra, the 9 Sutra, compiled by Gaia, was only an internal cultivation technique. It did not contain any other martial arts techniques. The 9 Sutra had a total of 9 layers. After painstakingly cultivating, Song Jia had already reached the 5th layer. As for the Yu maiden sword technique, Song Jia had already reached the 4th level, familiar. The reason why Song Jia was able to reach her current level, other than her extraordinary talent, was because of her hard work. Among the adventure players, how many people could go deep into the forest and stay there for 3 months? The current Song Jia finally had the bearing of a sect leader. Knowing that Lin Yu had already joined the Eastern Fence Sword sect, Song Jia was extremely happy and could not wait to return to the sect. As for Cui Tianqi and the others who were still training in the Five Finger Mountain, she did not plan to take care of them. Without experiencing the wind and rain, how could one see the rainbow? Before leaving, Song Jia gave Ouyang Shua 2 items that she had picked up from the corpses of the pirates. 2 items, a map and a talisman. North Sea Bay treasure map. 3. The North Sea Bay once gave birth to a very famous pirate, known as Bloody Butcher. After Bloody Butcher died, the huge wealth that he had plundered in his life disappeared. Before he died, Bloody Butcher buried the treasure on an uninhabited, deserted island and drew a treasure map of the island's location. He divided it into 3 and gave it to his 3 most trusted subordinates. Interesting, it was actually this map. When he was still attacking the Moon Island, Ouyang Shua had obtained the North Sea Bay treasure map. In this way, Ouyang Shua only lacked the North Sea Bay treasure map, 2, and he would be able to complete the treasure map. Now, Ouyang Shua was really tempted by this mysterious treasure. Of course, if he wanted to obtain the last map, he still needed to have enough luck. Just like the North Sea Bay treasure map, 3, that Song Jia had obtained, who would have thought that it was actually hidden in the hands of an ordinary pirate. The last talisman was the summoning talisman that all lords yearned for even in their dreams. This was a king-level historical summoning talisman. He really did not know what kind of talent it would summon. If it was a civil official, Ouyang Shua did not care who it was. But if it was a general, Ouyang Shua's greatest hope was to be able to summon a navy general. After sending off Song Jia, Ouyang Shua could not wait to tear open the summoning talisman. A white light flashed, and a middle-aged general appeared. System notification. Congratulations to player not have clothes for successfully subduing the king-level historical character Kai Mao. Special reward, 100 points of reputation. Congratulations. When the middle-aged general saw Ouyang Shua, he knelt on one knee and solemnly said, "General Kai Mao greets the Lord." What one wanted really came true. He had actually summoned a navy general. Kai Mao, although he was not famous, was really a very powerful general in the navy of the 3 kingdoms. Especially when it came to training the navy, even the famous Zhou Lang, Zhou Yu, was wary of Kai Pa. "General, please rise." Ouyang Shua stepped forward and personally helped Kai Mao up. Name, Kai Mao, king level, dynasty, 3 kingdoms, identity, Cliff Mountain City General, occupation, high-level general, loyalty, 75 commander, 80 martial power, 75 intelligence, 50 politics, 45 specialty. Treading on the waves, water battles increase troop movement speed by 10, water battles, Navy combat strength increase by 15. Nurturing the Navy, Navy training efficiency increase by 25, cultivation technique, none equipment, Han sword evaluation. In the past, people followed Liu Biao's example. Wide roads competed for vermilion hubs, deep hidden gold. In the midst of difficulties, the blame has accumulated deep. In the end, the clan has been overthrown and the imperial court has failed. Song Jia was really Ouyang Shua's lucky star. With Kai Mao, there was hope for the navy of Cliff Mountain City. Because of this accident, Ouyang Shua had to temporarily stay in Cliff Mountain City. That very day, Ouyang Shua pulled Kai Mao over to have a long talk. They talked about the construction of the navy. The next day, Du Ruhui, the head of the military bureau, teleported to Cliff Mountain City to discuss military affairs. According to the previous plan of the Nanyang Navy, the future Cliff Mountain City would have a Cliff Mountain fleet. Kai Mao came at the right time. Ouyang Shua immediately decided to appoint Kai Mao as the chief of the navy of the Cliff Mountain Fleet. The warships of the fleet had been built by the North Sea Shipyard, and the corresponding sailors had been trained by Pei Donglai. Therefore, the sailors only needed to sail the warships to Nanshan Harbor. What Kai Mao needed to do was to recruit real Navy soldiers in Cliff Mountain City and train them into an army. Kai Mao was very confident about the task given by the Marquis. It was no wonder. With his qualifications, it was not too difficult for him to train a water army. In the future, with the protection of the Cliff Mountain Fleet's First Fleet, the security situation of Jingzhou Island would be further improved. The fleet could even enter the deep sea to destroy the major pirate organizations. In short, having Kai Mao was like having a fleet. Shanghai City finally had a real Navy commander. 2 days later, when Ouyang Shua was about to return to Shanghai City, the sound of a system notification resounded in his ears, and he had no choice but to stop in his tracks. System notification: congratulations to player Not Naked. The year beast Little Green has successfully cultivated in the Spirit Beast Pavilion and has automatically become the guardian beast of Cliff Mountain Town. Reward: 500 reputation points. System notification: congratulations to player Not Naked. The descendant of the wolf god Little White has successfully cultivated in the Spirit Beast Pavilion and has automatically become the guardian beast of Cliff Mountain Town. Reward: 500 reputation points. Oh my god! The two little ones have both become the guardian beasts of the territory. The mysterious Spirit Beast Pavilion was really unpredictable. In such a short time, the two little ones had successfully cultivated. Ouyang Shuo had no time to be surprised and checked the two little ones' attributes. Name: Little Green, Spirit Beast. Belonging: Guardian Beast of Cliff Mountain Town. Level 45. Skills: Blood Massacre, increases kill value by 85. Sprint, increases attack power by 70. Combat power, 100. Characteristics: Deterrence, increases security of the territory by 25. Guardian, increases defense of the territory by 15. Technique: Black Qilin 7 Cycles of Hell. Crossing Scripture. Evaluation: An evil beast in ancient myths and legends. It is said to be the offspring of an evil dragon and a black Qilin. It is ferocious in nature. As a guardian beast, it can stimulate the Qilin's bloodline and can evolve. Compared to its parents, Little Green's attributes had improved a lot. The most important thing was that the little fellow had also gained a set of cultivation techniques. This was where the greatest potential lay. The name of the technique made Ouyang Shuo's imagination run wild. It was the Black Qilin 7 Cycles of Hell. Crossing Scripture. Did it mean that when Little Green mastered it, it would really have a chance to evolve into a real Qilin mythological beast? Name: Little White, Spirit Beast. Belonging: Guardian Beast of Cliff Mountain Town. Level 40. Skills: Psychic, can communicate with all wolf attributes. Charm, confuses the opponent through appearance. Combat power, 85. Characteristics: Deterrence, increases security of the territory by 35. Guardian, increases defense of the territory by 20. Technique: Wolf God's Book. Evaluation: Legend has it that the White Wolf is the royalty of the wolf clan and is the descendant of the wolf god. It has a supreme position in the wolf pack, and all the wolves in the world submit to it. Compared to Little Green, Little White's characteristics were even more abnormal. The little guy's origin was really mysterious. Its potential was even more frightening than Little Green's, which had the chance to evolve into a Qilin. To be continued. Chapter 387. P.S. Roll all over the floor for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Don't forget to subscribe. On the 12th of May, Ouyang Shuo returned to Shanghai City. Little Blue and Little White had been promoted to guardian beasts, so they were even more reluctant to leave the Spirit Beast Pavilion. Ouyang Shuo went to see the two little ones and Schwerer, who was also cultivating in the Spirit Beast Pavilion, before returning to Shanghai City. Ouyang Shuo could only wait and see what the three little ones would achieve in the future. As soon as he returned to Shanghai City, Ouyang Shuo summoned Du Ruhui, Zhao Kuo, and Cobra. It had been more than half a month since the plan to attack Lijiao had been formulated. Ouyang Shuo wanted to know the latest developments. Cobra was the first to report. Lijiao's area is about the same as Lianzhou Basin. There are currently 27 territories, including 22 second-class counties and 5 third-class counties. There are no first-class counties. Ouyang Shuo nodded when he heard this. If Lijiao was conquered and Jingzhou was excluded, the territory's area would be doubled. More than half a year had passed since the end of the Battle of Chongping. Even though there were no new battles during this period, the nobility of the various lords was still steadily rising through the suppression of bandits. Most of them were second-class earls or above. The lowest ranking among the members of the Alliance of Mountains and Seas was a first-class earl. From this, it could be deduced that Di Chun and the others were not far from becoming third-class marquises. Ouyang Shuo remembered that the fourth battle in his previous life was triggered by the birth of the fifth county city. There were currently 3 counties in the China region, as long as 2 of Dichun, Lord Chunshin, and Battle Wolf were promoted to marquises. The 4th battle would be just around the corner. The promotion mission of a county city was not too difficult for the major forces. Cobra paused for a moment, then continued. The territories in Liuzhou have basically reached the population limit. In other words, the second-class counties have 2 brigades of 5,000 soldiers. The 5 third-class counties have all formed city guard divisions. The total military strength of the entire Liuzhou region is close to 180,000. If we include the scattered city guards of the subsidiary territories, a conservative estimate would be at least 200,000. If they were all gathered together, it would be enough to destroy the entire Dragonxiang Legion. Fortunately, the situation was not at its worst yet. His brother-in-law, Song Wan, had already replied to Ouyang Shuo. In the Thunder Prefecture, there were a total of 8 territories that had joined the Heavenly Frost Alliance. All of them were second-class counties. With regard to these territories, Ouyang Shuo believed that when the army gained the upper hand, they would be able to see the situation clearly. The feedback from a Black Serpent was that it had completed the infiltration of 5 territories. In this way, it was equivalent to dissolving more than 30% of his opponent's strength. Even so, with just the Dragonxiang Legion's 2nd Regiment and Imperial Guards, it would be difficult for them to successfully conquer Thunder Province. Needless to say, they could not afford to suffer heavy casualties. Ouyang Shuo was confident that with the support of the special characteristics of the territory, coupled with elite equipment and valiant generals, it wouldn't be a problem for Shanghai City's army to fight against 3 enemies alone. With Bai Qi's leadership, even if they were to face an enemy force 4 times their size, Shanghai City's army would still have the confidence to face them head-on. Anymore, and it would be a huge test. Furthermore, when he considered that the Battle of Thunder Province would be focused on attacking cities, it would be even more difficult. Therefore, he estimated that he would need to invest at least 1 or 2 more regiments in order to successfully conquer Thunder Province. Of the 4 regiments of the Dragonxiang Legion, the 1st Regiment had to cross the 100,000 mountain range, the 3rd Regiment had to defend the Milan Fortress, and the only one that could be mobilized was the 4th Regiment led by Mu Guing. Mobilizing the 4th Regiment would require a certain amount of risk. This was because once the 4th Regiment was mobilized, the Imperial Guard would have to go on expedition. The entire defense of Shanghai City would be placed on the shoulders of the city guards. Without a reserve force, it would be extremely dangerous. After much consideration, Ouyang Shuo decided to leave the 3,000 Featherwood Guards in Shanghai City. Although he didn't think that the Yanhuang Alliance would choose to cause trouble at this time, he still had to take precautions. Caution was always a lord's greatest virtue. At the same time, the Dragonxiang Legion's 1st Regiment would also delay their crossing of the 100,000 mountain range. They would temporarily be stationed near the 100,000 mountain range that was bordering the Tianfeng Prefecture. When the situation in Liuzhou City stabilized, Shi Wansui would lead the Dragonxiang Legion's 1st Regiment to begin their arduous expedition, preparing to deal a fatal blow to Chiyu City. In this way, with the city guards and Featherwood Guards holding the fort in the city, and the Dragonxiang Legion's 1st and 3rd Regiments outside the city, as well as the Tiger Legion station in Cliff Mountain City, there shouldn't be a big problem. Even if the Yanhuang Alliance invaded, they wouldn't be able to take down Shanghai City. Even if they mobilized the 4th Regiment, they would only be evenly matched. Ouyang Shuo's goal was to swiftly sweep through the entire Thunder Province with an unstoppable momentum. Therefore, the best way was to send in another regiment. Thinking of this, Ouyang Shuo raised his head and looked at Du Ruhui, passed the order to the Tiger Legion, ordered the 1st Regiment to be ready to enter the Liuzhou City battlefield at any time. The 2nd Regiment is to strengthen their defenses and provide support to Shanghai City at any time. Yes, Du Ruhui nodded. Liuzhou is close to the sea, so there might still be naval forces. In this Battle of Liuzhou, the North Sea Bay Fleet's 1st Regiment will also enter the battlefield and be responsible for monitoring the sea. If necessary, they can also enter the Liuzhou City through the river. Although the North Sea Bay Fleet could not attack a city, it was still a good ambush force. Even for the Navy, Shanghai City had invested close to 70,000 soldiers in the Battle of Thunder Prefecture. It would not be an exaggeration to say that they had gone all out. Shanghai City was destined to shock the world once again. After the military meeting ended, Shanghai City's war machine began to operate at high speed. After the Dragon Legion's 2nd and 3rd Regiments left their encampment, they did not gather at Shanghai City. Instead, they boarded disguised merchant ships at the Friendship River and Pool River and directly gathered at the North Seaport. The Royal Guard Regiment also left the Royal City under the cover of the night and rushed to the North Seaport. Following the North Sea city's development, a civilian port had already been built on the other side of the city. Therefore, as a military port, no merchant ships could get close to the North Seaport. The Tiger Legion's 1st Regiment would board a battleship at Nanshan Port and directly head to the Liuzhou City battlefield. The battleship that was prepared for the Cliff Mountain Fleet's 1st Regiment had already set off from the North Seaport. After the battleship restocked at Nanshan Port, it would transport the Tiger Legion's 1st Regiment to Liuzhou City. Just like that, without the other parties knowing, Shanghai City had already completed the mobilization and assembly of the army. The naval fleet played an important role in this. The entire North Sea Bay was under the jurisdiction and territory of Shanghai City's navy. They could do whatever they wanted. Ouyang Shua's strategy of hegemony on the sea had finally begun to reap the fruits of his labor. Because the number of troops mobilized was too large, and the North Sea Bay Fleet's 1st Regiment could only transport 1 regiment at a time. Therefore, they had to establish an outpost in Liuzhou City. Fortunately, the shortest voyage between Liuzhou City and Lianzhou City was only 1 day. Even the longest voyage would only take 4 to 5 days. Although they were both near the sea, Liuzhou City and Lianzhou Basin were very different. Lianzhou Basin only had 1 estuary, and the length of the coastline was limited. Liuzhou was different. It was like a carrot, and more than half of its border was buried in the sea. In terms of terrain, Liuzhou had the characteristics of narrow from east to west and long from north to south. Based on the characteristics of this terrain, Bai Qi's battle strategy was to divide the army into 3 groups and coordinate with each other. The North Army was led by Mu Guing, the 4th Division of the Dragon Xiang Army. The Middle Army was led by Lin Yi, the Royal Guard Division, the core of the army. General Bai Qi was personally in charge of the Royal Guard Division. The South Army was led by Fan Lihua, the 1st Division of the Tiger Army. Finally, there was Luo Shixin's 2nd Regiment. It was also the only cavalry regiment. They made use of their powerful mobility to coordinate with the rest of the army. Bai Qi's plan was to clear out most of the Thunder Province's territories before the Thunder Province's rulers could react, making it so that they wouldn't be able to unite as one. Otherwise, it would be a headache if the 27 territories were to coordinate with each other. In order to prepare for the Battle of Liuzhou City, Ouyang Shua had no choice but to break the rules he had set during the Mountain and Sea Alliance Conference and purchase 1,000 catapults from Lingxi City. Mu Guiying's and Fan Lihua's divisions were each equipped with 300 catapults. The Royal Guard Regiment was equipped with 400 catapults. Basically, Ouyang Shua had swept away 3 to 4 months of Lingxi City's production. Other than the catapults, Ouyang Shua had also purchased over 100 siege vehicles and 500 siege towers. In addition, there were over 1,000 scaling ladders manufactured by Shanghai City's military factories. This batch of siege weapons would completely change the course of the Battle of Liuzhou City. Ouyang Shua had spent over 35,000 gold coins just to purchase these siege weapons. Violet, as the military's liaison officer, had complained a lot about Ouyang Shua's actions. Ouyang Shua had no choice but to apologize to each and every one of them. His allies were naturally very curious about Shanghai City's purchase of so many catapults at once. However, they held themselves back and did not ask. Even if it was Violet, it was just lip service. Ouyang Shua was naturally very grateful for the understanding of his allies. The Battle of Liuzhou City was a battle that Shanghai City could not afford to lose. Ouyang Shua had no choice but to be cautious. Other than purchasing siege weapons, Ouyang Shua also purchased large amounts of rations from the various merchant associations. When the army gained a foothold in Lijo City, the merchant association ships would transport millions of units of rations directly to Lijo City. In other words, the merchant associations had solved half of the rations transportation problem for the army of Shanghai City. After the rations were transported to Lijo City, Shanghai City would be responsible for the transportation of rations within Lijo City. For this reason, the military had already conscripted 50,000 corvée laborers in advance and were ready to head to Lijo City at any time. If it was not for the end of the spring sowing, it would be really difficult to conscript such a large number of corvée laborers. One must know that the construction projects in Lianzhou County had never stopped. The demand for craftsmen and labor at the various construction sites was very terrifying. Roughly speaking, Shanghai City had spent more than 60,000 gold coins on logistical resources. The 50,000 gold coins that Ouyang Shuo had kept in his storage pouch had been completely used up. This did not include the cost of the territory's military workshops and factories. If they were added together, it would probably be even more terrifying. It would easily exceed the 100,000 gold coins mark. Otherwise, why would they say that war was fought with economic strength? After a war, if the territory could not achieve its preset strategic goal, it would be enough to completely destroy the territory's economy. To be continued. Chapter 388. This was because they had to set up the front lines, and, at the same time, they would be the logistics base for the armies. Therefore, the first target of the three armies was the third-class county town. The Northern Army's target was the third-ranked county in the northwest of Lijo, Hengshan County. The Middle Army's target was the third-ranked county in the center of Lijo, Leishan County. The Southern Army's target was the southernmost third-ranked county in Lijo, Heian County. Thus, 3 out of the 5 third-ranked counties would be removed, which was equivalent to biting off the hardest bone. Most importantly, the 3 selected counties were all at the border of Lijo. After the army landed, they would not need to take a detour and could directly attack. Otherwise, Bai Qi would rather choose the second-ranked county at the border. Entering deep into enemy territory alone was a taboo. After the plan was decided, the army set off. On the 15th of May, the Imperial Guard Division set off as the vanguard. Bai Qi was the commander of the army and set off with the Imperial Guard Division. As for Ouyang Shuo, after sending off the army at North Sea Harbor, he immediately returned to Shanghai City. As the leader, he had his own duties. At this moment, it was most important for Ouyang Shuo to oversee Shanghai City. With him there, it would be enough to stabilize the hearts of the soldiers. No one would dare to act rashly. There was still some distance between North Sea Harbor and the center of Lijo. On the 18th of May, the first formation of the North Sea Harbor Fleet arrived at their destination. The fleet docked at a place called Black Soil Harbor. Apart from a small fishing village, there was no army station there. As early as a week ago, this small fishing village of 300 to 400 people had been thoroughly investigated by the Black Snake Guards. The people living in the village were all NPC fishermen. There were no players here. To prevent adventure-type players from entering the fishing village, the Chuanzhou Intelligence Station had specially arranged for a Black Snake Guard to be stationed here. Thus, the fleet was at ease and docked here. Ancient warships could not just find a random place to dock. They had to have a harbor. Otherwise, it would be very easy for them to run aground, especially for large warships like these. After the fleet docked, the Imperial Guard Division quietly disembarked. Apart from the army, they also had to unload countless siege weapons and rations. They were busy all the way until noon before the unloading was completed. After that, the fleet returned. Next, the fleet would be responsible for transporting Mu Ging and the 4th Division of the Xiang Dragon Legion to the second predetermined destination in the north of Leizhou. The Black Snake Guard had made meticulous arrangements for the 3 landing points in the north, south, and center. Black Snake had given a death order. They had to display the value of the Black Snake Guards in the Battle of Thunder Prefecture. After the army was assembled, they rested in the fishing village for a day. It was the first time for most of the soldiers in the army to take a boat. Their bodies were a little uncomfortable, so they couldn't immediately join the battle. Apart from that, there were also the war horses that were transported along with the fleet. Compared to soldiers, the green beetle horses were more valuable. The journey was bumpy, so these war horses had to rest well. The small fishing village became the temporary base of the Imperial Guard Division. As for the villagers of the fishing village, they were naturally gathered together and detained to prevent them from leaking information. The army was resting, but there was a unit that could not rest. They were the reconnaissance squadron directly under the division. Under the command of the squadron leader, all the scouts were dispatched and secretly advanced towards Leishan County. Their mission was to determine the exact route of the march and clear the obstacles along the way. After all, the intelligence division had only been active in Lijo for half a month, so they could only investigate the general terrain. When it came to the specific terrain, the divisions would be responsible for investigating it themselves. The first day of the Battle of Thunder Prefecture passed by peacefully. Leishan County, which was hundreds of kilometers away, did not know that a large army had already snuck under their noses. The next morning, the army that had rested for a day and a night was in high spirits. The true battle had just begun. Early in the morning, as soon as the army was assembled, the soldiers didn't stop at all. They rode on the dark demonic war horses that had recovered their strength and began to march rapidly towards Thunder Mountain County. At this time, the more they delayed, the more likely they would be exposed. The most difficult thing was the transport of the siege weapons. These big fellows were powerful, but transporting them was a big problem. Bai Qi decisively left behind 2 battalions to escort the siege weapons, while the main force continued to advance towards Leishan County. Early in the morning in Thunder Prefecture, the morning mist lingered and the air was very humid. Borrowing the morning light and the morning mist, the Imperial Guard Division, under the guidance of the scouts, were like a group of ghosts, moving forward quickly and nimbly like a nimble and graceful civet. Bai Qi had never stuck to conventional methods when it came to war. From Bai Qi's point of view, in order to catch the enemy off guard, they needed to send a vanguard unit to take down the city gates before the enemy could react. This way, they could avoid a head-on battle. If they sent out a large army, just the rumbling of the horses would be enough to alert the enemy. Thus, the vanguard unit could only be a small unit, and a battalion was the most suitable. Using a battalion to take down the city gates of a third-grade county, although it was a surprise attack, was an almost impossible task. Bai Qi's bargaining chip was the unparalleled elite soldiers of the Imperial Guard Division. These soldiers were elite soldiers carefully selected from the various divisions, and all of them were capable of fighting against 5 enemies at the same time. Bai Qi had confidence in them. After Bai Qi finished speaking, the division commander, Lin Yi, volunteered. "Commander, I am willing to go." Hearing this, Bai Qi decisively said, "Good. You will lead the personal guard division and be the vanguard. The 1st Brigade will be the vanguard. I will lead the rest of the army to cover the rear." The personal guard division was the most elite battalion in the Imperial Guard Division. There was no more suitable vanguard than it. Lin Yi, the young general, was also a rare and fierce general. Adding the two together, Bai Qi was naturally very confident. "Thank you, Commander." Lin Yi bowed and got on his horse. He led the personal guard division away from the main force and sped up. Following closely behind was the 1st Brigade of the Imperial Guard Division. Their mission was to ensure that the vanguard unit could arrive in time to provide reinforcements after taking down the city gates. Otherwise, everything would be for naught. The entire army, under Bai Qi's command, was closely linked and coordinated with each other. At around 9 in the morning, when Lin Yi led the personal guard division and suddenly appeared near the city gates of Leishan County, the enemy did not even have the time to react. The guards at the city gates thought that it was their own patrol team that had returned. It was not until the personal guard division was less than 500 meters away from the city gates that the guards at the city gates realized that it was an enemy force. "Enemy attack! Enemy attack!" The guards shouted. The originally calm city gates suddenly became chaotic. The people who were still queuing up to enter the city were suddenly in a mess. They pushed each other and squeezed into the city with all their might. Close the city gates, quickly close the city gates. The guard at the city gates was a middle-aged general. Seeing this, he immediately ordered to close the city gates. General, the city gates are blocked by the people. We can't close it at all. Chase them away, or we will kill them without mercy. The general's face instantly turned cold. If the city gates were lost, his head would fall to the ground. At this time, there was no room for mercy. Yes, sir. The soldier was also decisive and immediately gave the order. Archers, get ready. The general was still worried and ordered the archers on the city walls to get ready. Yes, sir. With the military order, the city gates became even more chaotic. At first, the guards tried to disperse the people, saying that the enemy's target was the city gates and would not harm the people. They asked them to stay outside the city gates. But the people did not listen at all and squeezed into the city. Seeing this scene, the guards could only wave their butcher's knife. Ah, murder! The soldiers are killing people. This time, the city gates became even more chaotic. With this deterrence, some of the people were afraid and really started to evacuate. Just as the guards were about to open the city gates and pull up the drawbridge, the Janissaries had already arrived. 500 meters was just a matter of charging. Janissaries, charge. He pulled out his tang knife and ran at the front of the team. Kill. The Janissaries did not care about the lives of the people. No matter who it was, as long as they blocked the way, they would kill without mercy. At this moment, they were in a race against time, and they couldn't afford the slightest bit of delay or mercy. Release the arrows. Release the arrows. Don't let them get close. The guard at the city gates saw the power of the enemy and couldn't help but feel shocked. How could there be such elite troops? Janissaries, the master of steel. Janissaries, the steel of steel. Under Lin Yi's lead, the soldiers' hearts were like a rock, ignoring the rain of arrows. With iron discipline, they charged towards the city gates. No one could stop their iron hoofs. Finally, at the last moment before the city gates closed, Lin Yi arrived with his troops. Kill! Lin Yi pulled out his tang knife, and his voice echoed. With a flash of the knife, heads fell to the ground. Kill! In the flash of the sword, there was the hot blood of men. In the clash of passion, it was the glory of a warrior. In less than 5 minutes, hundreds of city guards were slaughtered by the Janissaries. Not a single one was left alive. The Janissaries had successfully taken down the city gates. Cut the ropes. After taking down the city gates, Lin Yi was as calm as ever. Yes, we can't let them cut the ropes. City guards, follow me in a battle and kill them. The guard at the city gates was also a ruthless character. He immediately led the guards down the city walls and prepared for battle. Ants. Seeing the enemy charging at him, Lin Yi's face was full of disdain. He waved his right hand and said coldly, "Kill them." Yes. 500 Janissaries, facing more than 1,000 city guards, showed no fear. The huge difference between the two sides was just a short distance. The normal city guards were no match for the Janissaries. The city guards were beaten back again and again. Corpses blocked the city gates everywhere. Lin Yi didn't participate in this massacre. He sat on his warhorse and looked into the distance. On the horizon in the distance, a large army was approaching, accompanied by a clap of thunder. Under the sunlight, it emitted a golden light that couldn't be looked at. The first brigade of the Janissaries had finally arrived in time. To be continued. Chapter 389. Congratulations to Smoke Demon for becoming the first leader of this book. I'm so grateful. Thank you for your support, Demon Bro. At the same time, congratulations to South of Rosy Clouds for becoming the leader of this book. Thank you very much for your support. The 1st Brigade, as the vanguard, arrived at the battlefield and saw that they had already taken the gate. The commander of the 1st Brigade made a quick decision and ordered the entire army to charge. Charge! The general who was still fighting at the gate saw that the enemy had reinforcements and panicked. He yelled, "Defend the gate. The reinforcements will be here soon. Don't let the enemy get in, or our territory will be in danger. Fight to the death." The remaining guards fought with their lives on the line. Noisy. Lin Yi's face was cold as he patted the horse under him, arriving in front of the general in an instant. He swept his spear towards the enemy's vitals. The general was startled and swung his sword horizontally, striking the spear with a clang, creating sparks. A huge force came from the spear, and the general's arm went numb from the impact. He staggered, almost losing his footing. Even with the support of charge, such a huge force was enough to shock the defending general. He knew very well that he wasn't a match for this little general. In that moment of hesitation, Lin Yi charged forward again. Lin Yi's spear was extremely nimble. He took advantage of the moment when the enemy was stunned to make a feint, then followed up with a shocking stab, piercing the general's chest. Ugh! The general spat out a mouthful of blood and slowly lowered his head, looking at the spear in disbelief. Lin Yi didn't even flinch. He pulled the spear out, and blood spurted out. The general knelt on the ground, dead on the spot, his eyes wide open. A gate general couldn't even last 3 moves against Lin Yi. Good. The guards cheered for their general's strength. The city guards, on the other hand, looked at each other in shock, their morale dropping to a freezing point. Clear the gate as soon as possible. Lin Yi's expression didn't change as he fought the enemy himself. Yes, sir. The city guards finally couldn't take it anymore and were forced to retreat. 10 minutes later, the 1st Brigade arrived at the gate. General, the 1st Brigade is here as reinforcements. The commander bowed to Lin Yi. Lin Yi nodded. Arrange for 1 battalion to guard the gate. The rest follow me. Yes, sir. Lin Yi knew that the enemy's formation was unstable, and they didn't know the details of the battlefield. This was the perfect opportunity. With the arrival of the 1st Brigade as reinforcements, he was confident that he could face an entire division of the enemy. If they waited for the rear army to converge, they would have to fight the enemy in the streets. Kill. Like a black tide, the invincible iron cavalry surged into the city through the city gate, heading straight for the Lord's mansion. The shops along the street had already been closed during the battle at the city gates. There wasn't a single pedestrian in the huge street. It was very deserted. The commoners peeked through the slits of the door, watching the cavalry galloping past, their hearts trembling with fear. Another chaotic era. Just as the Imperial Guard Division was halfway there, they bumped into the City Guard Division that was rushing over. The City Guard Division had just come out of the barracks and were preparing to reinforce the city gates. Who would have thought that the enemy would actually break into the city within 20 minutes? When 2 enemies meet on a narrow path, the brave wins. Charge! Lin Yi didn't hesitate at all as he charged down the street. Kill! 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 The Imperial Guard Division was filled with killing intent. Formation. The general of the City Guard Division had no choice but to order his troops to form a formation and defend. The narrow streets stretched the City Guard Division's troops into a long line, their heads and tails unable to see each other. Shields up! The frontmost sword and shield troops raised their shields fearfully under the command of their commander. Fire! The archers at the back started aiming at the enemy. Everything seemed to be in order, panicked but not chaotic. Unfortunately, it was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. The City Guard Division that had formed a formation at the last minute was no different from paper in front of the powerful Imperial Guard Division. The Praetorian Guard Division was like a bulldozer, rumbling toward the City Guards Division at a speed of 75 kilometers per hour. All the enemies in their way were scattered, flattened, and turned into cold corpses. The long and narrow street had become the enemy's nightmare. How fast was the Imperial Guard Division's charge? The City Guard Division's archers had the most say. When they took out their arrows from their quiver, the enemy was still 1,000 meters away. When they knocked their arrows, the enemy was already 500 meters away. When they were ready to shoot, the enemy was already right in front of them. Sword and shield troops? Break through. Cavalry troops? Break through. Spear troops? Break through. Archer troops? Trample them to death. The City Guard Division was lined up densely on the long street, forming one military formation after another. However, they were unable to stop the Imperial Guard Division at all. They were like the Grim Reaper from hell, coldly and mercilessly harvesting lives. One after another, the military formations were torn apart at a speed visible to the naked eye like they were made of paper. The previously orderly army instantly turned into a pot of porridge. The soldiers pushed the generals, and the generals pushed the soldiers. It was chaos. Countless soldiers were knocked away by the Imperial Guard Division's cavalry, falling into the smelly gutters on both sides of the street. The long and narrow gutters were instantly filled with broken soldiers. How could this be? Seeing how strong the enemy was, the general of the City Guard Division paled. "General, we can't stop them. What do we do?" There was no room for maneuver in the street formation. The general's face was also unusually ugly as he roared. "What do we do? What else can we do? We have no way out. We can only fight to the death. Fight to the death. Fight to the death." Unfortunately, the cavalry didn't slow down at all. Even their shouts were uneven. Morale couldn't be used to win a war. For the first time, despair flashed across the general's face. The Imperial Guard Regiment was like a divine weapon, slicing the City Guard Regiment in half. Under Lin Yi's leadership, the soldiers was twisted into a rope. No matter who the enemy in front of them was, or how many there were, their only action was to charge, charge, and charge. Blades flashed, spears flashed, and lances raised. There were simply too many enemies, and they couldn't kill them all. More than half of them were pushed under the eaves on both sides of the street. In the face of such power, the scattered City Guard Division soldiers didn't dare to go forward and fight. They stared blankly at the Imperial Guard Division, heading straight for the Lord's Mansion. The Imperial Guard Division had created another record. With less than a brigade, they had defeated an enemy 5 times their size. Impressive, Imperial Guard Division. "General, do we chase after them? It's useless." The general of the City Guard Division was dejected. "We can't fight against such a strong force." 1 hour. In just 1 hour, the Imperial Guard Division had completely taken over Leishan County. When Bai Qi led the rear army to Leishan County, the flag of Shanghai territory was already on the city wall. At this time, the team in charge of escorting the siege equipment was still on the way. The Imperial Guard Regiment had fought a beautiful vanguard battle, defending their glory. This was their first battle since they were formed, and they lived up to the name of Shanghai City's invincible army. The moment Leishan County was taken, Ouyang Shua was sitting alone in his study. Suddenly, the sound of a system notification rang in his ears. System notification. Congratulations to player not wearing for taking over Gushin County. The reward is 1,000 merit points. Ouyang Shua smiled, picked up the teacup, and slowly took a sip of the white tea, the fragrance of the tea filling the air. Less than an hour after the battle, Ouyang Shua received a detailed battle report from the Black Snake Guards through the courier station. Using the courier station, the Black Snake Guards weaved an efficient communication network. Every unit had a member of the Black Snake Guards accompanying them to pass on the latest battle reports and military orders. Looking at the battle report, Ouyang Shua raised his head, and after a moment of silence, he said, "Come in. Here." His secretary, Lang Bai Nanpu, walked in. Imperial decree. The Imperial Guard Division has won the first battle and strengthened our military might. I hereby confer the title of Tiger General to show his bravery and merit. The rest of the soldiers will also be rewarded. Yes, sir. This was the first time Ouyang Shua was conferred the title of general because of his merit, except for Wang Feng, who was appointed as the commander of the Featherwood Guards, who was appointed as the Featherwood General. Before Shanghai City, only 2 divine generals, Bai Qi and Sun Bin, had obtained the title of general. Bai Qi was the commander-in-chief, and Sun Bin was the great general. According to the system of the Han and Tang dynasties, this was the highest military rank. In the Han dynasty, the Tiger General was a 5th-rank extra general, and it was usually conferred to the generals who fought bravely in battle. During the Three Kingdoms period, Eugene, Lu Meng, Zhao Yun, and other generals had received this title. It was already a great honor for Lin Yi to be conferred this title, and it was a first in Shanghai City. One could imagine how excited the others would be when the news of Lin Yi being conferred the title spread throughout the army. They would definitely hope to be conferred the title of general through their merit. The Thunder Prefecture battlefield was a great opportunity for him. Thus, it could be considered as a healthy competition for the generals in Shanghai City. Only with rewards would there be motivation. In the future, Ouyang Shuo would be conferred the title of general based on his merit. After the title was conferred, the position of general was not fixed. If he made another contribution, he could be promoted. After taking down Leishan County, the Central Army set it as their headquarters. After that, a steady stream of siege weapons and rations were transported from the port to Leishan County. Leishan County was temporarily under military control. The Lord of Leishan County was still in the dark when he was reincarnated in Xuanzhou. Until now, he still didn't know which force had destroyed his territory. After taking down Leishan County, Bai Qi didn't attack immediately to avoid alerting the enemy. The destruction of a territory was just an accident. If more territories are destroyed, even an idiot would be able to guess that something big had happened. Bai Qi waited for the northern and southern armies to get into position. On the 21st, Beihai Bay Fleet's first formation returned to Beihai Port. On the 23rd, Mu Guiying led the northern army to their destination. On the 24th, Fan Lihua led the southern army to their destination. On the 25th, Luo Shixin led the 2nd Division to Leishan County. The Battle of Lijiao had begun. To be continued. Chapter 390. Cliff State, Tiger Army Station. It was a dark and windy night. Only sporadic torches were burning in the dark night. In the Mountain Brigade camp, 2 young sergeants took the opportunity of patrolling to secretly meet up. In Sun Bin's Mountain Brigade, except for the brigade commander and battalion commander, who were selected from the 1st and 2nd Divisions, the rest of the squad leaders and platoon leaders were selected by the Li tribe warriors. The Li tribe warriors were very wild. The selection of the leader was naturally based on strength. The one with the bigger fist would be the platoon leader. The one with the biggest fist would be the platoon leader. Both of them were dressed as platoon officers. Their status in the army was not low, so it was obvious that they were extraordinary. Young Chief, we have found out that the 1st Division has left by ship. We don't know where they are going. The one who spoke was a thin-faced young man. There was a long scar on his face, which should have been left by a wild beast. When he spoke, the scar on his face twitched, looking a little ferocious. Great, this is a heaven-sent opportunity. If Ouyang Shuo was present, he would definitely recognize that this young chief was the sergeant who had offended him before. This person was called Shanzhu, and he was known as the first warrior in the Li tribe. Shanzhu also had a powerful background. He was the young chief of the largest tribe among the Li tribe's tribes. The leader of this tribe had always been respected as the leader of the Li tribe. From this, it could be seen just how valuable the young clan leader status was. Even the leaders of ordinary tribes had to salute when they saw Shanzhu. Shanzhu was able to win the title of First Warrior, not because of his young chief identity, but because of his actual achievements. When Shanzhu was 8 years old, he began to hunt in the mountains. The first time he hunted, he killed a 300-kilogram wild boar. At that time, it caused a sensation, and this was just the beginning of Shanzhu's glory. After that, every time Shanzhu went hunting, he could kill the most ferocious beasts. Tigers, leopards, jackals, and wolves all became his prey. Even the most powerful black bear could not escape bad luck. Because of his bravery, Shanzhu became the leader of the tribe's hunting team at the age of 10. At the age of 15, he became the leader of the hunting team. His reputation spread far and wide, and he was officially designated as the only candidate for the next chief of the tribe. At this moment, the mountain pillar's target had changed to even stronger desolate beasts. Shanzhu was born with great strength, and, after a long period of hunting, he had developed a set of killing techniques. Against the ferocious desolate beasts, he did not show any weakness. Other than hunting, Shanzhu killed without blinking an eye. Although the Li tribe was of the same origin, they often fought over hunting grounds. It was rumored that every Li clan warrior had to cut off an enemy's head to complete the coming-of-age ceremony. Otherwise, they wouldn't be acknowledged by the clan at all. From this, it could be seen how tragic the battles between the tribes were. Shanju, on the other hand, achieved the first clear when he was 10 years old, breaking the record for being the youngest player to do so. From then on, the name of the mountain pillar resounded throughout the forest, causing the enemies to tremble in fear. In order to eliminate future troubles and prevent Shanju, the wolf cub, from growing up, the nearby tribes had sent people to assassinate Shanju several times, but to no avail. Instead, they had lost a lot of men. By the time Shanju turned 15, no one dared to confront him head-on. After Shanju took over the hunting team, the hunting grounds of the tribe got bigger and bigger every year. The arrival of the tiger troop in Cliff State was another turning point in Shanju's life. Seeing that the tribes were being beaten back by the tiger troop, Shanju, as the young chief, decided to step forward. Once, when he was assisting a Li clan tribe to fight against the tiger troop, he saw that they were about to lose, and his companions wanted to take Shanju away. But he had an idea and took the opportunity to sneak into the captives to spy on the enemy. Such an action could be said to be bold. Shanju was lucky that Sunbin was going to build a mountain brigade. The strong Shanju was naturally selected and was elected as the team leader. He was doing very well in the army. Shanju was also a thoughtful person. He studied the advanced art of war while scouting the enemy camp. Seeing that the 1st Division had left the camp, Shanju had an idea. He wanted to contact his clansmen who had retreated to Mount Wuji and launch a counterattack against the tiger troop. Shanju was not only physically strong, but also very smart. After a short contact, Shanju had clearly realized that if he couldn't launch a fatal blow to the tiger troop before the mountain brigade was officially formed, he would have no chance of winning in the future. But the 2nd Division is still there. Can we win? The scar-faced youth was a little hesitant. His tribe was besieged by the 2nd Division. There were so many brave warriors in his tribe, but under the iron hooves of the 2nd Division, they could only struggle bitterly. Don't we still have you inside, men? As long as the mountain brigade is mobilized, victory is in our hands. Many of the prisoners of war in the mountain brigade knew Shanju, the young clan leader. Naturally, they gathered around Shanju. The scar-faced youth was one of them. The young chief is wise. The two were also cautious. After saying a few words, they walked away and disappeared into the night. They didn't expect that a pair of faint eyes had been watching them in the dark. Hey, the prey has finally taken the bait. Shanju probably didn't even dream that just because he met Ouyang Shuo once, he was closely watched by the military intelligence department. His every move was under the surveillance of the military intelligence department. After investigating Shanju's identity, Commander Sunbin chose to bide his time. Firstly, Sunbin admired Shanju and intended to promote him to the position of battalion commander. According to Sunbin's plan, he was prepared to train a few Li tribe generals to be battalion commanders or even brigade commanders. Only truly tribe warriors could truly tame Li tribe warriors. Secondly, Sunbin also wanted to take the opportunity to investigate Shanju's motives for joining the army. It was already late at night. The Tiger Army's commander's tent was still brightly lit. The orange light shone through the tent, giving people a trace of warmth. In the commander's tent, Sunbin sat in a wheelchair, using the oil lamp, studying military books attentively. Before coming to Cliff Mountain City, he borrowed more than 10 military books from his grandfather and read them every night. The guard on duty walked in and said, "Reporting to the commander, the military intelligence department's liaison officer is outside the tent asking for an audience. Come in." The one who walked into the commander's tent was the liaison officer of the military intelligence department stationed in the Tiger Army. "Commander, there's a new development on the big fish." Hearing this, Sunbin's spirit shook. He put down the military book and said, "Speak quickly." The liaison officer repeated what he had seen and heard in full detail. After a long time, Sunbin sighed. What a pity, what a pity. Isn't the commander overestimating the young patriarch? Seeing Sunbin sigh, The liaison officer was somewhat unconvinced. Sun Bin shook his head and said, "You don't understand. What should we do next?" "Commander, please tell us if we should take them down directly." The liaison officer knew that the territory was currently fighting a great battle in Thunder State. Cliff State was not suitable for any changes. "Take them down?" "No." Sun Bin shook his head firmly and said, "They don't know that danger is an opportunity. I was worried that I couldn't do anything to them. Since they took the initiative to walk out of the Five Fingers Mountain, there's no reason not to accept them." Hearing this, the liaison officer did not say anything. He was only an intelligence officer and could not interfere with military decisions. Sun Bin did not expect him to answer and said with a smile, "Continue to monitor them." "Yes." The liaison officer responded and retreated. The night was as dark as ink, and not a sound could be heard. Who knew how much danger was hidden in this? Shanghai City's all-out invasion was like a bolt of lightning that exploded in the sky of Thunder State. On the 24th of May, Mu Ging led the Northern Army and smoothly took down Hengshan County. On the 25th of May, Fan Lihua led the Southern Army and after a day of fierce battle, took down Heian County. The next day, with 3 third-grade counties as the center, 3 armies began a frenzied sweep. The various armies basically took down a city every 2 days and swept through Thunder State. Beitan County, Jishui County, Liangdong County, Qingyue County, Songzhou County, Chujie County, and Qianshan County. Many famous territories fell one after another and were completely wiped out of existence. When the citizens of the territories woke up, they found that the ruler had changed. The Reincarnation Hall in Xuanzhou had a steady stream of players reincarnating. Those who did not know would have thought that another guild war had occurred outside of Xuanzhou City. Who would have thought that these players were killed in their territories? The entire Thunder State groaned under the assault of the Shanghai City Army. In less than a week, half of Thunder State had fallen. Thunder State was shocked, Lingnan was shocked, and the entire China region was shocked. Who would have thought that the Lianzhou Marquis would have the courage to attack Thunder State? Amidst the clamor, the Yin-Huang alliance was exceptionally silent. The Yin-Huang alliance seemed to be interfering in Thunder State's affairs. Within the Thunder State, all of the territories that had not yet been conquered found members of the Yin-Huang alliance, but were all rejected. As such, there were rumors that the Yin-Huang alliance was afraid of Shanghai City and did not dare to accept the challenge. Ouyang Shuan naturally would not be so arrogant. From what he could see, there were 2 reasons for the Yin-Huang alliance's actions. Firstly, if the Yin-Huang alliance sent reinforcements to Thunder State, not only would they be useless, but they would also be harming others without benefiting themselves. The Yin-Huang alliance was not stupid and would not allow others to use them. Secondly, the Yin-Huang alliance could not afford to be distracted, as they were also preparing for a large military operation. After a period of silence, the Yin-Huang alliance, whether it was the members or the major factions, had all completed a new round of cooperation and reshuffling. The most important thing in front of Di Chun and the others was to quickly become a marquis, otherwise everything else would be for naught. In order to quickly raise their marquises, without any battles, the various rebel armies were the best targets. As long as they could take down the rebel armies, the achievement points they would receive would not be less than participating in a battle. After all, this was a true rebel army on the main map. Since the Yin-Huang alliance did not move, Ouyang Shuo was naturally happy to see this happen. In order to smoothly take over the 10 or so cities, Ouyang Shuo sent the 4 heads to Thunder State. The 4 heads were each in charge of their own matters. The military head Du Ruhui was in charge of selecting and reorganizing the prisoners of war. The administrative head Fan Zhongyan was in charge of selecting and removing officials. The internal affairs head Wei Yang was in charge of restoring order and investigating important figures. And the finance head Shui Yingyu was in charge of rebuilding and restoring the local economy. The 4 of them brought their own assistants, rushing from city to city. Ouyang Shuo continued to oversee Shanghai City, remotely commanding and controlling the overall situation. If things continued like this, taking over the entire Thunder State would only be a matter of time. On the 3rd of June, the situation in Thunder State suddenly changed. To be continued. Chapter 391. Seeing that more than half of the Lijo had fallen, and that the Yin-Huang alliance had no intention of interfering, one of the local leaders finally stood out. He was the leader of the Yin-Luo County Smoke and Fire Demon. Yin-Luo County was also a third-class county. It was located in the south-central region of Lijo, adjacent to the Lijo Bay in the east. Yin-Luo County had been spared because of its geographical location compared to the other 3 third-class counties that had already fallen into the enemy's hands. Lord's Mansion, Meeting Hall. As the host, Smoke and Flame Freak sat in the seat of honor. On the left side of the hall sat 5 lords. Their territories were located in the south-central part of Thunder State. One of them, in his 20s, looked a little anxious, and he broke the table. Broken Table's territory was called Tanmu County. According to the speed of the Southern Army's attack, Tanmu County would be surrounded in less than 2 days. Hence, the Broken Table was one of the lords who responded the most actively in this gathering of lords. There were only 2 people sitting on the right side of the hall, but both of them had powerful backgrounds. The one at the head of the table was an old man with a round face and a wide forehead. He was Bao Shuya, the most important civil official under Smoke and Fire's command. Speaking of Bao Shuya, one had to mention Guanzhong, the famous prime minister who had helped Duke Huan of Qi achieve hegemony. The friendship between Guan and Bao had always been a story of praise. In fact, although Bao Shuya was not as capable as Guanzhong, he was still a capable minister. The reason why he wasn't famous was because Guanzhong's brilliance was too dazzling. Bao Shuya, who lived under Guanzhong's halo, naturally had to keep a low profile. Name, Bao Shuya, King level, Dynasty, Spring and Autumn, Chief status, County Magistrate of Yinluo County Occupation, Civil Official Loyalty, 80 points Commander, 45 Martial Power, 30 Intelligence, 70 Politics, 70 Specialty, Awe-inspiring Righteousness, increases the incorruptibility of the territory by 40, Recruiting Talents, increases the talent development rate of the territory by 25, Evaluation, it's not easy to know a person, but it's hard to know a friend. Talking about the United States for the first time, taking advantage of the cold season. If Guansheng is satisfied, Uncle Bao will be at ease. 2 strange emotions shine. Your name is finished. Sitting next to Bao Shuya was a middle-aged general, but he was also dressed like a scholar. His expression was grave and stern, his face as sharp as a knife, his eyebrows like swords, and his eyes like stars. This middle-aged general was Chao Yu. When it came to Chao Yu, one had to mention the most famous Chao Yu debate in history. The famous saying, the first spurt of energy, the second decline, and the third exhaustion came from Chao Yu. Name, Chao Yu, King level, Dynasty, Spring and Autumn, Lu, Identity, Commander of Yinluo County City Guard Division Profession, Advanced General Loyalty, 80 points Commander, 75 Strength, 45 Intelligence, 55 Politics, 70 Specialty. Encourage, increases troop morale by 30%. Evaluation, a strategist type general who can use his wisdom to overcome hardness with gentleness, defeat the strong with the weak, and defeat the strong with the small. Compared to Luo Shixin and the other generals, although Chao Yu was slightly inferior, he was still a rare general. What was even rarer was that Chao Yu was adept at scheming. Defeating the strong with the weak was his forte. Bao Shuya and Chao Yu, one intellectual and one martial, were the greatest trump cards of Smoke and Fire Demon. Smoke and Fire Demon kept a low profile. Although there were 2 historical figures in his territory, few people knew about them. At the critical moment, Smoke and Fire Demon revealed his trump card. Seeing these 2 figures, the 5 lords who had come to discuss the matter felt more confident. There were 1 or 2 historical figures in their territory, but who were they? It was already very lucky to find their names in the history books. Some of them were not even recorded. The most famous one was called Bai Li Shi. He was the son of Bai Li Shi and was also a general. Bai Lishi was a famous minister who had been exchanged for 5 pieces of black sheepskin. He was a famous, virtuous minister who had helped Qin become one of the 5 hegemons of the spring and autumn period. However, it was Bai Lishi who was famous, not his son Bai Lishur. Everyone, Smoke and Fire Demon, looked around and said, "Shanghai City is coming at us fiercely. At this critical moment, we must work together and unite as one. Only then can we get through this." The lords all nodded in agreement. "Brother Demon, if you have any ideas, just say it. We'll listen to you." The Lord of Tanmu County, Broken Table, was the first to express his opinion. "Yes, say it. Good." Smoke and Fire Demon slammed the table and said loudly, "Since you all trust me, I'll say it directly. When the time comes, we should form an alliance and use the advantage of teleportation to catch the enemy off guard." As soon as he finished speaking, there was another round of discussion in the hall. "Brother Demon, it's not impossible to form an alliance. The problem is, according to you, if we gather our forces together, what will happen to our territory? Without an army to defend it, the army of Shanghai City could take it down at any moment." The lords were also shrewd people, and it was not that easy to fool them. "Fool!" The one who spoke was not Smoke and Fire Demon, but Broken Table. Broken Table stood up excitedly and said loudly, "Without the lips, the teeth will be cold. If the skin is gone, where will the hair attach to? Don't you all understand this simple principle? If we can't destroy the enemy's forces, is it useful to defend the cities one by one?" He shouted to one of the lords. "Is it useful?" The lord on the other side was speechless. "Let me ask you, with the troops in your hands, are you confident that you can stop the attack of the southern army of Shanghai City?" As soon as he finished speaking, the hall fell silent. No one present dared to say that they could stop the army of Shanghai City by themselves. Think about it. It had only been a week, and Shanghai City had already taken over a dozen territories. The bloody report card was enough to make all the lords recognize the cruel reality. Seeing that the lords were deep in thought, Smoke and Fire Demon spoke again. "Now that things have come to this, we should all accept the reality. The only thing we can do now is to cut off our means of retreat. Only then will we be able to survive." "All right, I agree," one of the lords said. "Me too." Agreed. At this point, the alliance was finally formed. The next step was to discuss the specific battle plan, and for this, they needed to invite Chao Yuan. As the commander of Yin Luo County City Guard Division, Chao Yuan would also be the commander of the alliance, and the specific tactics would naturally be formulated by him. The troops of the 6 territories added up to a total of nearly 40,000 soldiers. The goal of the alliance was to attack the Southern Army. June 2nd, Tanmu County. Under the leadership of Family Hua, the Southern Army finally arrived at the city of Tanmu County. On the city wall stood a few guards, trembling with fear. "General, the enemy seems to be a little small." Family Hua frowned, also noticing that something was wrong. "Forget it, attack directly." "Yes." Since the moment they landed, the Southern Army led by Fan Li Hua had been advancing like a hurricane, and they had never lost a battle. The successive victories had caused the mentality of the soldiers, including Fan Li Hua, to underestimate the enemy. Although there were some small anomalies in Tanmu County, Fan Li Hua did not take it to heart. The siege of the city was unusually smooth. In less than an hour, the vanguard occupied the city wall. Fan Li Hua frowned again as she rode on her warhorse. "Something is wrong. Order the entire army to be on guard. Do not slack." "Yes." After the army entered the city, there was no one on the streets. This was normal. Every time a city was attacked, the people in the city would hide. The clatter of hooves was somewhat ear-piercing in the quiet street. Just after the Southern Army entered the city, something happened. The city gate that had been taken down suddenly opened a secret door. A large number of soldiers rushed out from the hole and closed the city gate again. "Not good, it's a trap." Family Hua was shocked and shouted, "Get into formation, defend." It was too late. A dense number of soldiers suddenly rushed out from the streets. What was even more fatal was that a large number of archers suddenly appeared on the rooftops on both sides of the street. A dense rain of arrows rained down on the army. The Southern Army suffered heavy losses in an instant. "General, what do we do? What are you panicking for?" Fan Lihua shouted. Although she was a female general, she was extraordinary. "Blade and shield soldiers cover us. Remove the doors of the shops and form a defensive formation. Defend this place to the death." Fan Lihua did not dare to rush into the shops to hide. If the enemy set fire to the shops, they would all be wiped out. Yes, the 1st Division was indeed an elite division. They panicked, but did not panic. The blade and shield soldiers formed a formation to block the rain of arrows, while the archers waited for an opportunity to counterattack. The strong bows and crossbows once again showed their might. Although the enemy was on the higher ground, they still fought to a draw. The archers on the rooftops were continuously shot to death. Their corpses rolled down. The crisis on the higher ground was gradually alleviated. The rest of the soldiers brazenly rushed to the shops on both sides of the street and removed the door planks. Coincidentally, there was a grain store on the side of the street that was stocked with food. The soldiers moved bags of food onto the street and formed a simple defensive structure. Relying on the defensive structure, the 1st Division miraculously managed to hold on. Chow Yao stood on an arrow tower at the city gate and looked at the Southern Army in the distance. He sighed. They are indeed an elite division. Under such circumstances, they are able to respond without any mistakes. In a situation where the difference in military strength was not obvious, Chow Yao did not dare to order an all-out attack. Otherwise, it would be hard to tell who would win. The battle was in a stalemate just like that. Everyone knew that this was only temporary. Fan Lihua stood behind the door planks and shook her head in frustration. She could not be blamed for being careless. She did not expect that in just a few days, the enemy would actually form a regional alliance. Using the advantage of teleportation, the Allied army caught the Southern Army off guard. Fortunately, the 1st Division was not to be trifled with. As long as the situation was stabilized, there was still a chance. Fan Lihua's trump card was Luo Shixin's division, which was the main support of the army. As long as Luo Shixin led the 2nd Division of the Dragongxiang Legion to reinforce them, the siege of Tanmu District would immediately be lifted. Not only that, but they could also wipe out the Allied army. This way, the central and southern parts of Lei Province would fall prematurely. Fan Lihua was waiting. Chow Yao was also waiting. Although the Allied army had the geographical advantage, their military strength was more than twice that of the enemy. However, Chow Yao still did not have the confidence to completely wipe out the enemy. Chow Yao was also waiting for reinforcements. His master, Smoke and Fire Demon, was actively contacting the other lords to pull them into the alliance and then teleporting to Tanmu District. This way, they would have the absolute advantage in military strength and the momentum of MT Tai to wipe out the Southern Army. Once the Southern Army was wiped out, the situation on the battlefield would be reversed. Both sides were in a race against time. The 2nd Division, led by Luo Shixin, would need at least 2 days to reach Tanmu District. Could Smoke and Fire Demon find reinforcements in 2 days? Everything was unknown. The news of the Southern Army being besieged spread across Lei Province. This victory came at the right time. The invincible image of Shanghai City's army was instantly shattered. The biggest variable in the Battle of Lei Province had appeared. To be continued. Chapter 392. The situation in the south-central region of Laizhou allowed the northern region to see a glimmer of hope. The 7 territories in the north quickly formed an alliance under the leadership of Qiantang County. They formed an army of 50,000 people to fight against the northern army led by Mu Guing. The commander of the army was the commander of Qiantang County's Guard Regiment, Wei Zhang. Wei Zhang and Wei Zhang had a relationship similar to that of Wei Ran and Bai Qi. Wei Zhang and Zhang Yi's relationship was similar to Bai Qi's relationship with Wei Ran. They were both trusted generals recommended by the ministers to command troops. After King Huiwen's death, his son King Wu succeeded the throne. Zhang Yi lost favor and was banished. Wei Zhang was also banished to the state of Wei. After that, there were no records of him. It was undeniable that Wei Zhang was also a general. Name: Wei Zhang, king level, dynasty, Warring States, Qin, identity. Commander of Qintang County's Guard Regiment, occupation. Height general loyalty, 80 commander, 75 martial power, 85 intelligence, 55 politics, 45 specialty. Strive, increases movement speed by 15%. Evaluation, Wei Zhang, a fierce general. Birth and death years unknown. In 312 BC, with the help of Qi Liji, he defeated the Chu army at Danyang, captured Chu Liao, beheaded 80,000 people, and seized the land of Hanzhong. Under Wei Zhang's leadership, the Allied army fiercely suppressed the Northern Army's offensive momentum. The situation in Liezhou fell into a stalemate. Shanghai City's momentum was stopped, and the entire war entered the second phase, a stalemate. Leishan County Magistrate, the Expeditionary Army's headquarters. Bai Qi sat in front of a desk. Behind him was a map of Liezhou drawn by the Military Intelligence Department. Although the situation in Liezhou had changed, Ouyang Shuo did not give any orders to Bai Qi. He still entrusted Bai Qi with all matters of Liezhou and did not interfere. Bai Qi was grateful for the Marquis's trust. He had to repay this trust with his actions. Luo Shixin led the 2nd Division to Tanmu County to reinforce the Southern Army. The only army that Bai Qi could mobilize was the Imperial Guard Regiment. The central and northern regions had formed an alliance, and the central region of Liezhou had a rare gap in their defense. The Imperial Guard Regiment was still advancing, attacking cities and capturing territory. Man, here, transmit my order. The 1st Brigade of the Imperial Guard Division is to divert and attack Yanluo County. First formation of a North Sea Bay Fleet, detour to Liezhou Bay and coordinate with the 1st Brigade to attack Yanluo County. Yes, sir. Bai Qi was about to launch a decapitation operation. Once Yanluo County was surrounded, the Southern Alliance Army would suffer a setback. Bai Qi wanted to know whether the Lord of Yanluo County would protect the Allied Army or his territory. As for the war in the north, Bai Qi was not worried about it. The two sides were only in a stalemate. With Mu Ying's talent, she would not repeat the mistakes of the Southern Army. On the surface, the situation in the Thunder Province seemed to be disadvantageous to the army of Shanghai City, but in reality, it was already nearing the end. As long as they took down the two Allied armies, the entire Thunder Province would fall in just 10 days. Now, it all depended on who was more brilliant. At the same time that the Thunder Continent was changing, the Cliff Continent, thousands of kilometers away, was also in a state of turmoil. June 3rd, morning. The salty and humid sea monsoon wind stirred up bursts of thick fog. At the edge of the Five Fingers Mountain, early birds chirped in the trees, their voices pleasant to the ears. Suddenly, the tranquility in the forest was broken. A rumbling sound came from deep within the mountains. Not long after, a red wave broke through the shackles of the forest and surged out. Upon closer inspection, they were actually Li tribe warriors. Every warrior wore red leather armor, held a spear or hunting knife, and carried a hunting bow and arrows on their backs. The warriors' faces were also painted with various mysterious patterns using unknown dyes. This was a battle for revenge. In the words of the tribe leader, they were despicable invaders who had occupied their hunting grounds, making it impossible for them to hunt wild boars and tigers. They had to use the blood of their enemies to defend their honor. This time, the Li tribe suddenly sent out an army of 60,000, preparing to surround the Tiger Army. The mighty army swept through everything in its path. The warriors occasionally let out strange roars, as if they were going out to hunt. Just as the Li tribe army walked out of the forest, a signal flare immediately rose into the sky and exploded. As if it had received an order, a signal flare rose into the sky every 2 to 3 kilometers. Looking from the sky, the continuous rising signal flare formed a long line, extending from the edge of the Five Fingers Mountain to the camp of the Tiger Army, which took less than 15 minutes. At this time, the Li tribe army was still hundreds of kilometers away from their destination. The commander's tent of the Tiger Army. General, the fish has taken the bait. It was Dai Qin, the commander of the 2nd Division of the Tiger Army, who walked into the tent. Sun Bin's face was calm. and his eyes did not move away from the book. He said lightly, "Follow the plan." "Yes." Dai Qin turned and left. In the camp of the Mountain Brigade, routine drills were being carried out. In the team, several sergeants were obviously absent-minded, including Shan Zhu, the young patriarch of the Li tribe. Shan Zhu had already contacted the tribe through secret channels. Today was the agreed date for the attack. The camp of the Mountain Brigade was specially built by the army, and there were wooden walls around it for easy inspection. A burst of hooves suddenly sounded outside the camp. Dai Qin rode a war horse and walked at the front of the team, followed by the soldiers of the personal guard camp. "General," the two brigade marshals of the Mountain Brigade hurried over and saluted. They looked puzzled, not knowing what was going on. Due to the high level of secrecy, the two brigade marshals did not know Sun Bin's arrangement. "Gather the troops." Dai Qin did not explain anything and directly gave the military order. "Yes." The two brigade marshals turned and left. "Gather, gather." There was a commotion in the Mountain Brigade. Many of the soldiers were connected to Shan Zhu and knew that today was the day of the uprising. At this time, any abnormality would touch the sensitive nerves of the soldiers. The soldiers turned and looked at Shan Zhu, intentionally or unintentionally. Shan Zhu's heart trembled, and a bad premonition came to his mind. He was still calm and took the lead to gather. Seeing this, the other soldiers also gathered. No matter how slow the two brigade marshals were, they could smell a trace of uneasiness in the air, and their expressions became solemn. "General, the Mountain Brigade is assembled." Dai Qin nodded on his war horse and said, "Order the soldiers to put down their weapons." The standard weapon of the Mountain Brigade was the Tang saber. Since it was training, they would naturally carry the Tang saber with them to practice their saber skills. The brigade marshal's heart trembled, but he did not ask or say anything. He turned around and gave the order. "Everyone, put down your weapons and enter the warehouse." Wow! The troops became noisy again, and the uneasy atmosphere began to spread rapidly. "Why should we put down our weapons?" "That's right, why should we?" Some soldiers were unconvinced and retorted. "How dare you?" The brigade marshal was furious and said sternly, "This is an order. After training for so long, have you forgotten the most basic military discipline? We don't accept this." The soldiers ignored the brigade marshal's words and continued to clamor. The two brigade marshals' faces instantly darkened. In front of the division commander, the troops they led were so disrespectful. It really made them lose face. In the crowd, Shan Zhu's expression was also ugly. With his strong intuition, Shan Zhu vaguely realized that their actions might have been exposed. If they put down their weapons at this time, it was tantamount to seeking death. Thinking of this, Shan Zhu tightened his grip on the Tang saber, and his eyes gradually turned cold. Seeing Shan Zhu's reaction, more soldiers left the troops and surrounded Shan Zhu. Some of the soldiers who were not roped in by Shan Zhu could not help but turn pale when they saw this scene. Everyone knew that something big was going to happen. "What? Do you want to rebel?" At this moment, Dai Qin rode over on his war horse, escorted by his personal guard camp. Shan Zhu stared at Dai Qin and did not say a word. The air at this moment froze and it was suffocating. A mutiny on the verge of breaking out. Dai Qin's expression instantly turned cold, and he waved his hand. As he moved, on the wooden walls around the camp, a dense number of archers suddenly appeared. These archers were naturally the cavalry of the 2nd Division. Tens of thousands of arrows were aimed at the Mountain Brigade below the camp. Wow! There was another commotion in the crowd, and some of the soldiers who were close to Shan Zhu could not help but turn pale. The situation was already very clear. If the Mountain Brigade dared to resist, they would immediately end up being pierced by thousands of arrows. Shan Zhu's face also turned pale. He knew that he had failed. Not only him, but the entire tribe could not escape the fate of failure. Ridiculous, ridiculous. Ridiculous that he thought that he was smart, but he did not expect that his every move was under the enemy's surveillance. In the current situation, he could only fight to the death to defend the last dignity of the Li tribe warriors. Thinking of this, Shan Zhu raised the Tang knife in his hand and said loudly, "Warriors, use the enemy's blood to defend the tribe's dignity. Are you willing to die with me? Live and die together. Live and die together." As expected of a group of hot-blooded men, they were willing to die together. Dai Qin was not moved. He circulated his internal force, and his voice reached the ears of every soldier. Shan Zhu, right? Yes. Shan Zhu had completely thrown caution to the wind. Dai Qin shook his head and said, "To think that the marshal admired you so much, but you are a boorish man." You. Shan Zhu was furious. The glory of a warrior is not to be blasphemed. Stupid. Dai Qin shouted, and the ears of the soldiers rang, and they could not help but feel shocked. You died a happy death. But have you ever thought about what kind of fate your tribe will face? You only know how to be a hero and disregard the lies of your tribe. What kind of hero are you? Hearing this, Shan Zhu's face turned pale. Surrender, and give your tribe a chance to be reborn. Clang! The tang knife fell to the ground, making a crisp sound. To be continued. Chapter 393. P.S. The structure of the territory has been uploaded, including the structure of the government and the structure of the army. Those who can't remember can go take a look. The 2 mountain brigades, a total of 5,000 soldiers, all had their weapons confiscated and were temporarily detained. Shan Zhu and a few other warriors who were mainly involved in the instigation will be investigated by the Department of Military Law. After settling the internal problems, Dai Qin led the 2nd Division and prepared to face the 60,000 Li clan army. If he wanted to subdue the Li clan natives, he had to bleed. After receiving Sun Bin's report, Ouyang Shua even took the risk and transferred 3,000 Featherwood guards to Cliff Mountain City to help. If he wanted to defeat many with fewer, the best way was naturally to set up an ambush. When the Li clan army approached the Tiger Army's camp, what they saw was a quiet camp. The commander of the army was Shan Zhu's father, Shan Hu. Great leader, it seems to be an empty camp? The one who asked the question was a young warrior called Eagle. His martial strength was only below Shan Zhu's. Could it be that the enemy has already escaped? It's also possible that this is the enemy's trap. The Han people are too cunning. Then what should we do? Everyone was talking at once, bewildered and uncertain, not knowing what to do. The scene in front of them was completely different from what they had imagined. Shan Hu frowned and said, "Eagle, bring a team in to take a look." "Yes, sir." Eagle was also full of courage. He brought 100 men and snuck into the camp just like that. "Be careful of a trap." Mountain Tiger was worried and reminded him from behind. "Don't worry, great leader." Eagle and his party carefully walked into the camp. As far as the eye could see, the camp was empty. Bags of rice were scattered everywhere in the open space. Some of the bags were broken, and the white rice was scattered all over the ground. In addition, there was some dried meat, soybeans, and other supplies. "Captain?" The team members looked at Eagle in unison. "Let's search the house again." Eagle looked carefree, but his heart was extremely meticulous. "Understood." Once again, the team members were on high alert as they searched the houses one by one. 10 minutes later, all the team members returned. Reporting to Captain, "There's no one here." No one. The reports received were all empty houses. This group of cowards must have escaped. Eagle chuckled and waved his hand, saying, "Let's go back and report to the great leader." Yes. Shan Hu led his troops and waited outside the camp. He did not hear any sounds of fighting, and he looked a little nervous. "I wonder how that brat, Eagle, is doing inside. He hasn't come out yet." At this moment, Mountain Eagle led his team and ran out. "Great leader, how is it? It's just an empty camp. Food and meat are all over the place." "It's probably because we left in a hurry. Have you done a thorough search?" Shan Hu is still worried. "I've searched the entire place, but there's no one in the house." "All right." Shan Hu was overjoyed. He turned his head and said, "Everyone, listen up. Everyone, enter the camp and rest for the night. Early tomorrow morning, we will attack Cliff Mountain City." "All right." The army cheered and their morale soared. The encampment of the Tiger Brave Legion was built according to the organization of 4 divisions. Thus, the 60,000 Li clan soldiers did not feel crowded at all. Seeing the rice and dried meat scattered all over the camp, the soldiers howled. When he opened the granary and saw the mountains of rice and dried meat hanging on the walls, he became even more excited. There were even jars of wine stacked in the corner of the warehouse. Wine was the favorite of the Li clan soldiers. Smelling the fragrance of the wine, the group of young soldiers drooled. Great leader? Eagle took the lead and looked at Mountain Tiger with anticipation. Mountain Tiger was also happy. He smiled and said, "Brats, look at how greedy you are. Tonight, the entire army will hold a bonfire party. There will be enough wine and meat." All right. The soldiers jumped in joy. Some of the quick-witted ones had already walked out of the warehouse and spread the news. Instantly, the entire camp was in an uproar. Mountain Tiger retracted his smile and pulled Eagle to the side. He secretly instructed, "Check to see if the food has been poisoned. The Han people's hearts are very vicious. Don't fall for it." Understood. That night, the camp was bustling with noise and excitement. The soldiers sang and danced, ate big pieces of meat, and drank big mouthfuls of wine. They were extremely carefree. It was not until late at night that the soldiers returned to their respective tents under the captain's scolding. The entire camp gradually quieted down. Mountain Tiger was still worried. He arranged for the troops to take turns on duty to prevent the enemy from attacking the camp. Without a doubt, Mountain Tiger's worries were unnecessary. For the entire night, there wasn't even a shadow of a ghost. It wasn't until midnight that Shan returned to his tent. It was so dark outside the camp that he couldn't even see his own fingers. If he dared to attack the camp in such a night, he would be asking for trouble. The huge camp slowly quieted down, leaving only the sounds of insects chirping. Strangely, the camp became lively again in the second half of the night. One by one, the soldiers crawled out of the tent in search of toilet. Because there were too many people who wanted to use the toilet, there was a long line in front of the toilet. Some of the soldiers couldn't hold it in any longer. They randomly found an empty space, took off their pants, and settled it on the spot. For a time, the entire camp became filled with a stench. As time passed, more and more soldiers let out cries of ouch and ouch. As he shouted, he ran out to settle it. Even Mountain Tiger was no exception. "Damn Han people, they're too cunning." Mountain Tiger cursed as he clutched his stomach. "Go call Eagle over." Mountain Tiger was extremely angry. So I hissed, "Yes, sir." The guard clutched his stomach as he went to look for Eagle. Not long later, Eagle rushed over weakly. "Bastard, didn't I ask you to check if you're poisoned?" When he saw Eagle, Mountain Tiger scolded him to his face. It was really smelly. The entire camp was filled with this smell. "Poochie, Poochie," sounds rose and fell one after another. With a bitter face, Eagle replied innocently, "Great leader, you're wrongly accused. We've checked the food and dried meat one by one, and even fed them to the animals in advance. They're all fine. They're indeed not poisoned." Then what's going on now? Mountain Tiger was furious. "Wine." Eagle's face was filled with certainty as he said fiercely, "It must be wine. Damn Han people, they must have put laxatives in the wine. It's impossible to find out." "Wine?" Mountain Tiger was stunned. He instantly believed Eagle's words and said fiercely, "Fuck, I won't drink anymore. Drinking will cause trouble." The ordinary guards had faces full of disbelief. Who didn't know that the great leader was addicted to alcohol? It would be better to take his life. "Great leader, what should we do now? What should we do?" The great leader muttered to himself. How many people have never drunk before? Basically none. The warriors of the Li clan were addicted to alcohol. Who didn't know how to drink? If one's alcohol tolerance wasn't good enough, they would be ridiculed by others. Thus, almost all of the 60,000 soldiers were poisoned. The fact that thousands of jars of fine wine in the warehouse had been emptied in a single night was the best proof of this. That night, the 60,000 soldiers spent their time in the toilets. Some of the soldiers simply didn't go to the barracks and squatted on the open ground. The scene was spectacular. In a single night, the 60,000 soldiers had all turned into soft-footed shrimps. The entire camp also became filled with a stench. The next morning, when the 2nd Division surrounded them, the soldiers all covered their noses. It was too smelly. Dai-Chin rode on his warhorse and looked at the scene in front of him. In his heart, he couldn't help but admire Commander Sun Bin. What was this called? As they talked and laughed, the oars turned into ashes. Charge in and take them down. Yes. In the real battle, the 2nd Division's tactical attainments were vividly displayed. Just now, they were still covering their noses, but when they received the order, they repeatedly turned into noseless men. They ignored the stench in the air and charged into the camp with iron discipline and expressionless faces. The Li Clan soldiers who had diarrhea all night were all soft-footed shrimps. In the face of the ferocious Shanghai City Army, they could only quickly lay down their arms and surrender. Seeing that the battle was going smoothly, Wang Feng, who was following behind the army, immediately bid farewell to Sun Bin. "Great General, we'll take our leave." Sun Bin sat in his wheelchair and said with a smile, "Go." "Thank you, Marquis." Just like that, the 60,000 Li Clan soldiers that came with a menacing momentum were subdued by Sun Bin in a dramatic manner. After keeping the army in custody, Sun Bin's first order was to thoroughly clean the camp. After cleaning for an entire day, the stench gradually dissipated. When Shan Hu, Shan Ying, and the other leaders were escorted to the commander's tent, their faces were full of dissatisfaction. "What, you're not satisfied? Despicable." Shan Hu's eyes were as wide as a bull's. Don't be dissatisfied." Sun Bin smiled and said, "If you really hide in the Five Fingers Mountain for the rest of your lives, I might not be able to do anything to you. But if you run out of the forest, I have 100 ways to defeat you. Do you believe me? Who doesn't know how to boast?" Shan Hu was still disdainful. Sun Bin shook his head and said to his personal guard, "Bring them here." "Yes." Soon, Shan Zhu and the scar-faced youth were escorted into the tent. "Shan Zhu." Shan Hu was shocked, and a trace of joy flashed in his eyes. Originally, Shan Hu thought that according to the current situation, Shan Zhu had most likely been killed. He didn't expect that Shan Zhu was still alive. It was good that he was alive. "Father." Shan Zhu's face was full of shame, and his voice was low. Father and son were both prisoners. It was really unreasonable. "How about it? Do you still have the confidence to defeat us?" Sun Bin asked. Shan Hu knew that since Shan Zhu had been exposed in advance, their plan had long been foiled, but he still stubbornly said, "With real swords and real spears, the men of the Li Clan are not afraid of you." Unexpectedly, Sun Bin nodded and said, "That I believe." Shan Hu was taken aback. The young man in the wheelchair before him was really strange. On the battlefield, it doesn't matter what methods are used, only the results. Sun Bin changed the topic and said, "The results are that we won and you lost. Am I right?" Shan Hu was stunned and said unyieldingly, "If you want to kill or plunder, do as you please." Chapter 394. Why should I kill you? Sun Bin would not do anything stupid. Shan Hu's position and significance among the Li tribe natives was extraordinary. If he was really killed, Cliff Mountain City would become enemies with the Li tribe natives, and it would be impossible to win their hearts. "Then let me go." Seeing that his life was not in danger, Shan Hu became arrogant again. "Let you go? Impossible." Sun Bin had recently become familiar with military books and knew of Zhuge Liang's 7 capture of Menghua. But he would not do such a time-consuming and laborious thing. Where would he have the time to do so? "You." Shan Hu was furious. "What do you want?" "Cooperation." "Cooperation? That's right. Our Li tribe has lived here for generations. We will not cooperate with you Han people." Shan Hu was still stubborn. He did not trust the Han people. Sun Bin shook his head regretfully. "You don't want to cooperate? Then there's no other way. In order to eliminate all future troubles, I can only chop off your heads. I want to see how the old, weak, women, and children in the mountains will fight against my army." Sun Bin said it casually, but Eagle and Mountain Pillar broke out in cold sweat when they heard it. If you want to kill, then kill. There is no coward among the Li tribe warriors." Shan, who was really stubborn, he did not turn back even after hitting the southern wall. Good, you have blood. Sun Bin nodded. His face suddenly became cold. He shouted loudly, "Guards! Here!" 4 guards walked in with a murderous look. "Drag them away and behead them in public." Yes. The guards dragged Shan, Hu, and the other 2 out for interrogation. Shan, who was immediately dumbfounded. This young general was beaming with joy a moment ago, and the next moment he was cold and murderous. This change in attitude was unexpected. Damn Han people, they were too cunning. A trace of regret flashed in Shan Hu's heart, but it was impossible for him to lower his head and admit his mistake. Wait. The one who spoke was Shan Hu's son, Shan Zhu. Seeing that the situation was not right, Shan Zhu finally regained his senses. If he did not speak, not only him and his son, but the entirely tribe would suffer. Compared to Shan Hu, Shan Zhu was much more open-minded as a young man. Especially after living in the military camp for a period of time, Shan Zhu deeply realized how wonderful the world outside the mountains was. In the past, when he was holed up in the tribe, he was like a frog in a well. During the days when he was detained, Shan Zhu kept reflecting on the fate of the tribe. What should he do? Was it really a mistake to walk out of the mountains? Putting everything else aside, just the advanced art of war of the Han is enough to make Shan Zhu infatuated. He, who had seen the vast world, did not want to drag the entire tribe into the abyss because of stubbornly sticking to tradition. Speak. Sun Bin waved his hand to stop the guard. He merely wanted to scare Shan, Hu, and the others. How could he really execute them? An army of 60,000. He, Sun Bin, was no cold-blooded butcher. Shan Zhu turned to look at his father and said, "Father, I think we should listen to their conditions first. It won't be too late to make a decision after that." Shan Zhu spoke very tactfully. He naturally had to take into account his father's face. He knew how much his father cared about face. Shan Hu snorted, tacitly agreeing to Shan Zhu's suggestion. Shan Zhu blushed with shame. He looked at Sun Bin again and asked, "What kind of cooperation?" Shan Zhu's feelings towards Sun Bin were extremely complicated. There was hostility, but also admiration, especially after listening to Dai Qin, who seemed to be highly regarded by Sun Bin. The feeling in his heart became even more complicated. "I don't have the authority to decide the specific cooperation. I have to discuss it with the Marquis personally." Sun Bin was only a general, so naturally, he could not decide the allegiance of a tribe. Although the Marquis had given him great power, Sun Bin would not act recklessly and overstep his boundaries. Otherwise, he would be committing a great taboo. Scrupulously abiding by the way of a general was the bottom line and principle of every general. "All right, General, please introduce us to the Marquis of Lian Province." One had no choice but to lower one's head. For some reason, the Marquis of Lian Province, whom he had only met once, suddenly flashed across Shan Zhu's mind. What would the future be like? The next day, accompanied by Sun Bin, Shan Hu and his son were teleported to Shanghai City to see Ouyang Sha. After receiving the news, Ouyang Sha received the father and son in the main hall. As they were still captives, Shan Hu and his son were still tied up when they entered the main hall. When Ouyang Sha saw this, he said, "They're guests from afar. Men, untie their ropes." Yes, the Marquis. Sun Bin was a little worried. He knew how powerful Shan Zhu was. Once the ropes were untied, it would be troublesome if Shan Zhu suddenly attacked. "It's fine." Ouyang Sha smiled, full of confidence. Shan Zhu might be strong, but with Ouyang Sha's current strength, he had nothing to fear. Not to mention that there were guards outside the main hall that could enter at any time to provide reinforcements. The guards received the order and untied the ropes on Shan Hu and his son. When the guards left, Shan Zhu really did have a thought in that instant. If he could capture the Marquis of Lian Province, then all the danger would be resolved. It wouldn't be a problem for them to retreat from the Cliff Province. However, when he saw the Marquis of Lian Province sitting on the main seat, unmoving like a mountain, Shan Zhu's heart trembled. He felt that the Marquis of Lian Province was unfathomable. In the end, he gave up on the thought. Seeing that Shan Zhu didn't attack, Sun Bin let out a sigh of relief. Ouyang Sha didn't mind it at all. He smiled and said, "Give him a seat." Shan Hu and his son obediently sat on the right side. Sitting across from him was Sun Bin. The 4 division heads of the Marquis's mansion were currently in the Thunder Province and couldn't make it to the meeting. When Shan Hu and his son entered the main hall, they felt that the Marquis of Lian Province was extraordinary. After fighting with wild beasts for a long time in the forest, they had trained their intuition to be as sharp as wild beasts. Based on their intuition, they could feel that the Marquis of Lian Province was faintly emitting a domineering and murderous aura. Facing the Marquis of Lian Province was like facing the king of the forest. They were completely suppressed. Along with the awakening of Ouyang Shua's consciousness, the murderous aura from his previous life as an Azura had slowly affected Ouyang Shua's temperament. This murderous aura was suppressed by the inner canon of the Yellow Emperor. On the other hand, the demonic god bloodline in Ouyang Shua's body was stimulated by the murderous aura. If Ouyang Shua wasn't careful, the murderous aura would leak out. With their momentum being completely suppressed, the confidence and trump cards of the two were imperceptibly weakened. What they had to face was a king that couldn't be offended. Before the meeting, Ouyang Shua didn't talk about the Li tribe. Instead, he first introduced the Mountain Barbarian tribe and the Prairie tribe living in Lian Province and elaborated on the equality policy of the various tribes in the territory. Shan Zhu and Shan Hu sucked in a mouthful of cold air. Not to mention the Prairie tribe, the Mountain Barbarian tribe was a barbarian tribe that was comparable to the Li tribe. The Marquis of Lian Province could subdue the Mountain Barbarian tribe, which was truly the demeanor of a king. If they could really go down the mountain and live like the Marquis said, it might not be a bad thing. Shan Zhu was even more delighted inwardly. He felt that his choice was correct. Seeing that the two were bewildered, Ouyang Shua added, "If you still have doubts, you can stay in Lian Province for a period of time and investigate the place to see if I'm exaggerating or not. It won't be too late to discuss after you've seen it." Shan Zhu and Shan Hu looked at each other before they stepped forward and said, "We trust the Marquis." "Good. Straightforward." Ouyang Shua laughed heartily. Sun Bin, who was sitting on the side, couldn't help but sigh in admiration when he saw the Marquis subduing the two in a few moves. After the discussion, more than 20 tribes would move to Cliff Mountain City, ending their primitive hunting life and turning to farming. They would establish settlements in the western suburbs of Cliff Mountain City, with the tribes as units. According to the territory policy, each tribe would receive free land, farming tools, and a month's supply of food and other supplies from Cliff Mountain City. The remaining food could also be borrowed from the granary of Cliff Mountain City. At the same time, in order to take care of some hunters who were unwilling to farm, Cliff Mountain City would also build its first subsidiary territory at the foot of the Five Fingers Mountain, Ningyuan Town. In the future, Ningyuan Town would also be the outpost for adventurous players to enter the Five Fingers Mountain. Cliff Mountain City was still too far from the Five Fingers Mountain, so it was inconvenient to go back and forth. It could be foreseen that Ningyuan Town would flourish in the future. Of course, Ouyang Shua wouldn't take in all the 60,000 soldiers who had surrendered. Most of the soldiers would be sent back to their villages to become the main labor force for farming. Adhering to the territory strategy of elite soldiers, Ouyang Shua ordered that Sun Bin be in charge of selecting the elites to form 3 more mountain brigades. Together with the previous 2 mountain brigades, they would form a division of mountain troops, the 3rd Division of the Tiger Army. The position of division commander of the 3rd Division was temporarily vacant. Shan Zhu, who was favored by Sun Bin, was appointed by Ouyang Shua as the 3rd Division's deputy division commander and the 1st Brigade commander, while Shan Ing was appointed as the 2nd Brigade commander. Shan Zhu's successful promotion completely dispelled Shan Hu's doubts. Marquis Lian Zhou's breadth of mind was not something he could guess, so he had to admire him. Shan Zhu was even more grateful to Ouyang Shua. Name, Shan Zhu Gold. Identity, Tiger Army's 3rd Division's Deputy Division Commander and 1st Brigade Commander. Occupation, Intermediate General. Loyalty, 75. Commander, 55. Martial Power, 85. Intelligence, 45. Politics, 40. Specialty, Innate Divine Strength, increases troop combat power by 15. Cultivation method. None equipment. None evaluation. The Li tribe's number 1 warrior, innate divine strength, able to tear tigers and leopards apart. Shan Zhu was indeed talented. He was already intermediate general as soon as he appeared. With Sun Bin's guidance, it was only a matter of time before he became advanced general. As for the cultivation method, Ouyang Shua immediately thought of Eli's desolate tiger scripture. If there was a chance, he could have Eli teach it to Shan Zhu. At this point, the southern part of Jingzhou Island was basically pacified. The population of Cliff Mountain City increased by more than 160,000 at once, ushering in another explosive growth. With this battle, Binger's achievement points also increased rapidly, and she was promoted to a rank 2 earl. On the same day, Cliff Mountain Town was promoted to a rank 2 county. At the same time, the battle in Thunder Province also entered a critical period. To be continued. Chapter 395. Leizhou, Tanmu County. The originally unremarkable city had become the focal point of the entire Thunder State battlefield. It was as if the small, bustling city had withered overnight because of the war. It was ruined and lifeless. The most prosperous business street had been reduced to ruins. The clean bluestone road was full of holes and puddles of blood. The gutters on both sides were filled with corpses. Their faces were covered, and no one had buried them. The richly ornamented shop had been burnt to a crisp by the fire. Its walls were in ruins, still giving off wisps of green smoke. Everything was telling of the cruelty of war. Under the orange sunset, Chow Yao stood on the city wall and frowned. One day and one night. They had attacked for 1 day and 1 night. The Shanghai city's Southern Road Army that was trapped on the street still stood their ground as firm as a rock. Chow Yao had tried all sorts of tactics, including fire attacks, ambushes, night raids, and cutting off the water supply. It was useless. The enemies hiding behind the simple fortifications were like immortals. No matter what, they would not budge. The northern part of Leizhou had formed an alliance. The danger in the north had been alleviated, but it also meant that his master, Smoke Demon, was unable to rope in enough allies. The northern and southern parts of Leizhou had been separated and fought on their own. In the face of survival, no one could be noble. Smoke Demon begged the Northern Alliance to send reinforcements to Tanmu County and destroy one of the armies. The reply he received was, then just send the Southern Army to Qiantang County. Smoke Demon didn't know what to say. Not everyone had the same breadth of mind and strategic vision as him. Before they reached a dead end, most people would only look at the benefits in front of them and not bet everything on one throw. In an entire day, only 2 territories joined the alliance and sent over 10,000 soldiers. Smoke Demon sent a message that there wouldn't be any reinforcements. Let's fight. Chaoya didn't dare to wait any longer and started to attack the enemy. He knew that the cavalry of Shanghai City was rushing over to Tanmu County. The tenacity of the Southern Army had exceeded his expectations. Chow Yao couldn't imagine how a female general could tame a group of hot-blooded men. The balance of the war had started to tilt in the direction of the alliance. Men, here, order, retreat. The army will spend the night recuperating and building up their strength. We will launch the general attack tomorrow. Chow Yu was like a gambler who had lost so much that he decided to stake everything on one throw. Yes, sir. Accompanied by hurried, clanging sounds, the Allied troops retreated like the tide. Who? Fan Lihua let out a sigh of relief. General, judging from the enemy's formation, I don't think they will launch another night attack tonight. The one who spoke was Liao Kai, commander of the 1st Division's 2nd Brigade, a veteran general of Shanghai City. Fan Lihua nodded and said, even so, we can't let down our guard. Understood. Call Zhao Yin over. It's time for him to go up. General? Liao Kai was shocked, and a trace of excitement flashed in his eyes. General Luo has sent a letter saying that reinforcements will arrive before noon tomorrow. The Military Intelligence Division made use of the hummingbirds to establish a communication network and performed a miraculous feat, sending over crucial intelligence early on. Great! Liao Kai was extremely excited. The bitter days of the 1st Division were finally coming to an end. Go! Fan Lihua waved her hand. Yes, sir. Zhao Yan was also a veteran general of Shanghai City, serving as the commander of the 1st Brigade of the 1st Division. His subordinates were all saber and shield soldiers, and they were the absolute main force on the battlefield during the day. The 1st Brigade of the Tiger Army's 1st Division was able to hold on until now due to the contributions of the soldiers of the 1st Brigade. Compared to Liao Kai's quick-wittedness, Zhao Yan was purely a fierce general. When he rushed over, his armor and helmet were all covered in blood, and even the Tang saber in his hand was still dripping with blood. Those who did not know would think that he was an evil spirit that crawled out of hell. The soldiers around him did not have a trace of fear, but instead looked at him with awe and worship. Ordinary soldiers admired such valiant generals the most. General, Zhao Yan grinned and saluted. Fan Lihua nodded, unmoved by Zhao Yan's attire. Although she was a woman, she was not inferior to men, and she had also been through mountains of knives and seas of fire. This kind of posture could not shake Fan Lihua's mind at all. It had to be said that just this kind of willpower was enough to suppress the men of the 1st Division. Even Zhao Yan did not dare to be presumptuous in front of Fan Lihua. Go and reorganize, choose 500 elites, and act according to the plan at night. No mistakes. Zhao Yan's eyes lit up, and he said loudly, Understood. I promise to complete the mission. Remember, this trip concerns the success or failure of the entire war. No mistakes can be made. Fan Lihua solemnly reminded him again. General, rest assured, if there is any mistake, Zhao Yan will bring his head to see me. Fan Lihua nodded, waved her hand, and said, Go and prepare. Yes, sir. Zhao Yan bowed once more and strode away with his head held high. That night, under the cover of the night, Zhao Yan led the 500 most elite soldiers of the 1st Brigade out of the back door of the shop and disappeared into the night. Because the Allied army had received the order to reorganize, they did not notice any of this. June 5th morning, the Battle of Thunder State was about to usher in the most crucial day. Early in the morning, the Allied army gathered again. The 50,000-strong army pressed forward, launching continuous attacks on the enemy's position. The commander of the Allied army, General Chao Yao, had given a death order before the battle. This attack could only succeed, not fail. All the soldiers would either die on the battlefield or step on the enemy's corpses to advance. There was no third choice. Anyone who dared to retreat would be executed. Because of this, Chao Yao specially formed a supervision team to follow behind the army. Anyone who dared to retreat would be executed without any reason, regardless of military rank. The bloody military order made the hearts of the Allied soldiers tremble. This time, they really had to cut off all means of retreat. If they didn't succeed, they would die. Kill! 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 Shouts rose and fell one after another, gathering together and shaking Tan Mu County. The shocking killing intent was like a red cloud that shrouded the sky above Tan Mu County, not dissipating for a long time. In a place that couldn't be seen, Luo Shixin was leading the Dragon Xiang Army's 2nd Division. Suddenly, out of his general's intuition, Luo Shixin raised his head and looked in the direction of Tan Mu County, his heart throbbing. He could faintly feel a cold, killing intent shrouding the city. This was definitely not a good thing. Luo Shixin patted his warhorse and shouted, Everyone, speed up! Yes, sir. Chao Yao walked up the city wall again. This time, he didn't walk to the commander's seat, but to the war drums, took down the drumsticks, and personally played the drums to cheer for the soldiers. The rumbling of the war drums reverberated in the city, causing waves of echoes. Kill! 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 Stepping on the drums, the 50,000 Allied soldiers attacked from both ends of the street. Numerous archers appeared on the roofs on both sides, aiming at the Southern Army's position. The battle of life and death had officially begun. At the Southern Army's position, Family Hua was still as valiant as before. Her tall and straight figure was the greatest comfort to the soldiers. "General, they're attacking." Liao Kai walked over. Family Hua was expressionless. This brigade commander always liked to say meaningless things. She didn't turn around and said indifferently, "Is everything ready on Zhao Yan's side?" At 3:00 in the morning, Hummingbird sent back news that everything is ready. "Good." Family Hua breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Tell the soldiers below to hold on until noon." "Yes, sir." For the 1st Division of the Tiger Troop, this was the most difficult battle. Because they were alone, the 1st Division supplies could not keep up. The soldiers had no food, so they could only make pots of porridge with the rice they found at the last minute. Even the water used to make the porridge was dirty water scooped up from the sewers. The soldiers had no medicine. Because there were too many wounded, the medicine brought by the military doctors had been used up. Now, there wasn't even a clean piece of gauze to be found. Even so, the soldiers of the 1st Division were still full of fighting spirit, because their general ate the same porridge and drank the same dirty water as them. Following such a general, the soldiers were unafraid of death. Under the pressure of the Allied forces, the 1st Division retreated step by step. For this, the Allied forces also paid a heavy price. With every step forward, there were hundreds of casualties. It was unimaginable that in a positional battle, the ratio of casualties on both sides was actually close to 1-5. Thinking of the enemy's weak logistical supplies as an opponent, Chow Yu couldn't help but feel deep respect. This was a group of hot-blooded men worthy of respect, a true elite division. Although there were heavy casualties, Chow Yu's expression became more and more relaxed. The balance of the war tilted in favor of the Allied forces again. As long as they could annihilate the enemy, any price was worth it. Chow Yu played the war drums and continued to cheer for the entire army. The rumbling of the war drums was the loudest bugle call. As the battle progressed, the situation became more and more desperate. Both sides engaged in close combat, eyes bloodshot. At 11:00 in the morning, the rumbling of horse hooves suddenly sounded outside Tanmu County. On top of the city wall, Chow Yu's heart trembled. Not good. How did the enemy's reinforcements arrive so quickly? According to normal calculations, it would be at least 5 or 6:00 in the afternoon before the reinforcements arrived. Time was tight, and Chow Yu didn't have much time to think. Fortunately, he was an experienced general. Chow Yu knew that when you predicted the most disadvantageous situation, it was often the most likely to happen. How bad you predicted the situation would be, it would definitely be this bad. Therefore, Chow Yu had already arranged for a garrison of over 2,000 soldiers near the city gates. With such a large army guarding, the reinforcement from the cavalry would definitely not be able to break through the city gates in a short time and enter the city to reinforce the Southern Army that was already in a desperate situation. As long as they took down the Southern Army before the reinforcements broke through, the situation would still be under Chow Yu's control. Chow Yu had this confidence. To be continued. Chapter 396. Chow Yu's confidence did not last long. In less than half an hour, the messenger ran over in panic, his face pale. "General, it's bad. The enemy's reinforcements have entered the city." "What?" Chow Yu turned pale with fright. His body swayed, and he was about to lose his balance. His face instantly turned ferocious. He quickly stepped forward and grabbed the messenger's collar, saying in a stern voice, "Nonsense. The city gate was guarded by 2,000 soldiers. How could it be breached so quickly? You dare to pass false military intelligence? I'll kill you." As he spoke, he was about to draw the sword at his waist. The poor messenger was frightened by Chow Yu's ferocious expression. His collar was so tight that he could barely breathe. His heart trembled. "It's over. I'm going to die in the hands of the general." "General! General!" Fortunately, his personal guard rushed over in time and saved the messenger's life. Chow Yu was startled and finally regained his composure. He tried his best to maintain his calm and asked in a slightly trembling voice, "Speak. How was the city gate breached?" The messenger hurriedly sucked in 2 breaths. Only then did his face turn red. He glanced at Qiao Yu with lingering fear in his heart and said carefully, "The enemy has already set up an ambush at the city gate and caught the guards unprepared." With both sides working together, the city gate was breached very quickly. The ones who ambushed the guards at the city gate were the 500 elites led by Zhao Yan. Last night, Zhao Yan had led his troops and sneaked into the residences near the city gate. When the army led by Luo Shixin arrived, they immediately rushed out and defeated the 2,000 city gate guards. Ambush. With Qiao Yao's intelligence, he immediately figured out the cause and effect of the matter. I was too careless. Qiao Yao did not expect that the enemy would actually ambush an ambush in such a hopeless situation. He, Qiao Yao, had lost this battle. He had been utterly defeated. The huge sense of defeat caused Qiao Yao to be dazed. "General, what should we do now? What should we do?" Qiao Yao muttered to himself. After a long time, he squeezed out a few words with difficulty. "Surrender." Qiao Yao did not want his soldiers to lose their lives in vain. There was no longer any meaning in continuing to fight. There was a moment of silence on the city tower. The feeling of falling from heaven to hell was definitely not pleasant. A moment ago, they were still in sight of victory. The next moment, they were about to become prisoners. "Surrender." Qiao Yu repeated his words, but his tone was much firmer. "My lord, Qiao Yao has failed you." A hint of death flashed in Qiao Yu's eyes. When the rumbling sound of horse hooves rang out on the commercial street, it was simply a nightmare for the allied troops who were attacking fiercely. The murderous steel cavalry charged from behind at high speed, immediately causing people to be thrown off their horses. In an instant, the allied forces suffered heavy losses. Fortunately, this nightmare ended as quickly as it came. In less than 10 minutes, a white flag of surrender was hung on top of the city wall. The Allied soldiers hurriedly threw away the weapons in their hands, as if they had seen a ghost, for fear of being mistakenly killed by this group of demons. Compared to the miserable state of the Allied forces, the Southern Army was in a state of celebration. They did it. Under the fierce attack of 50,000 soldiers, they managed to hold on until reinforcements arrived. The 1st Division of the Tiger Brave Corps was worthy of its glory. After the revelry, there was great exhaustion and sleepiness. In order to prevent the enemy from attacking at night, the soldiers had not had a good sleep for 2 days and 2 nights. Some of the soldiers did not care about the blood on the battlefield and fell asleep. The corpses on the battlefield were used as pillows by the soldiers. When Luo Shixin arrived with his troops, he saw such a strange scene. As the Allied forces surrendered, the Battle of Tan Mu County ended with Shanghai City's victory. Fan Lihua stood on the ruined battlefield, but there was not a trace of the joy of a victor on her face. This victory was really not easy to come by. In this battle, the 1st Division of the Tiger Brave Corps had lost more than 3,000 soldiers, including a brigade commander and 6 battalion commanders. If the wounded were included, the casualty rate was close to a third. This was the first time a brigade commander had died since Shanghai City was formed. The loss could not be said to be small. The brigade commander who died was the brigade commander of the cavalry brigade of the 1st Division, Li Mingliang. Li Mingliang was also a veteran of Shanghai City. Since the days of Shanghai Village, he had been valued by Ouyang Shuo and was promoted all the way from squad leader to battalion commander and finally to brigade commander. Unexpectedly, he fell on the battlefield of Tan Mu County forever. The atmosphere on the battlefield was somewhat oppressive. Seeing this, Luo Shixin led his troops and took the initiative to take care of the prisoners of war. In the end, only about 30,000 of the Allied forces survived. Some of the soldiers were seriously injured and had to be retired. At the end of the battle, there were no less than 1,000 people who were executed by the supervising troops. This battle was really tragic. Fan Lihua was also a strong female general. After a brief moment of sadness, she recovered, taking care of the prisoners of war, treating the wounded, and cleaning up the battlefield. Other than that, there was also the completion of the occupation of Tan Mu County, the restoration of order, the implementation of military control, and so on. The work after the battle was really complicated and fragmented. The Lord of Tan Mu County abandoned the city and fled when Luo Shirshin's troops entered the city. The most important person to take care of the prisoners of war was naturally Chao Yu. When she was free, family Hua especially went to see Chao Yu. On the city gate tower, Chao Yu was about to commit suicide to atone for his crimes, but was stopped by his personal guards. When family Hua received the news, she immediately sent people to take care of Chao Yu alone to prevent him from committing suicide. It wasn't easy to capture a general. If she let him commit suicide, family Hua didn't know how she would face the Marquis. When the battle report of Tan Mu County reached the hands of the various lords, the south-central region of Thunder Province was completely silent. Everyone knew that the south-central region of Thunder Province was completely finished. There was no chance for them to turn the tables. Some of the lords didn't wait for the army of Shanghai City to attack. They directly took the wealth of their territory, abandoned their people, and directly teleported to Royal City. The entire south-central region of Thunder Province was instantly plunged into chaos. Some bandits in the wilderness even took the opportunity to wreak havoc, burning, killing, and looting. Thunder Province urgently needed a leader to restore order. That afternoon, the 1st Brigade of the Imperial Guard Division arrived outside Yanluo County. The Lord of Yanluo County, Smoke Demon, had already received the news of the Allied forces' defeat. Different from the other lords who abandoned the city and fled, Smoke Demon's actions were a bit strange. He directly hung a white flag on the city gate, indicating that he was willing to surrender. When the 1st Brigade saw this, they were a bit hesitant, afraid that it was a trap. The lesson of the Southern Army was still vivid in their minds. The culprit was the Yanluo County. Smoke Demon stood on the city gate. When he saw that the 1st Brigade did not move forward, he made another shocking move. He simply took Bao Shuya with him, held the Lord's seal, and left the city to surrender. Seeing this, the 1st Brigade was relieved. After entering the city, they smoothly took over the Lord's mansion. Strangely, Smoke Demon did not leave. Instead, he moved to a house next to the Lord's mansion. Along with him was his important subordinate, Bao Shuya. The brigade commander of the 1st Brigade did not make a decision on his own. After occupying Yanluo County, he reported the battle report in detail to the headquarters and waited for further instructions from headquarters. This wait lasted for more than half a month. After the Battle of Tan Mu County ended, Bai Qi was so busy that his feet barely touched the ground. Almost every hour, there would be a battle report delivered to his desk. Some asked for logistics, some asked for how to deal with the prisoners of war, and some asked for the next step of the operation. However, Bai Qi could not ignore any of the battle reports and had to give his comments. At this time, he had no time to care about such trivial matters. The battle report was placed on Bai Qi's desk, and no one paid any attention to it. Following the defeat of the Allies in the south-central region, Luo Shirshin's division quickly went north to support the Northern Army under the headquarters instructions. As for the south-central region of Thunder Province, Fan Lihua's division was left to clean up. Under Fan Lihua's command, the 1st Division of the Tiger Army completely cleared out the south-central region of the Thunder Province in just a week. All the roving bandits fled at the sight of them. The chaotic south-central region of Thunder Province immediately quieted down. The officials who had followed behind the 1st Division to take over the city complained to their superiors, saying that with the speed of the siege, even if they had doppelgangers, they would not be able to keep up. The 4 division chiefs had no time to pay attention to their subordinates' complaints. They were even busier than their subordinates, investigating the gentry, appointing officials, reorganizing the prisoners of war, appeasing the people. Fan Zhongyan and the others were so busy that they did not even have time to eat alone. They could only eat while listening to their subordinates' reports and making timely instructions. Fan Zhongyan was busy, but Duru Hui was scared witless. The 1st Division of the Tiger Legion was busy clearing out their territory. There were 60 to 70,000 prisoners of war in the south-central region of Thunder Province, but there was less than a brigade of regular soldiers guarding them. Thinking about this, Duru Hui could not sleep well. Her subordinates were so busy in Thunder Province that smoke was coming out of their heads. As the lord, Ouyang Shua was still sitting leisurely in Shanghai City. He did not have any intention of moving at all. As Luo Shixin's division headed north, there were no more twists and turns in the northern region of Thunder Province. Luo Shixin's division headed north. They first assisted the Imperial Guard Division in clearing out the central region of Thunder Province. Next, the two divisions headed north hand in hand. Along the way, they were like a hot knife through butter. By the time the army reached the northern region of Thunder Province had basically been cleared out. Only now did the Northern Alliance feel regret. They regretted not listening to smoke and fire suggestion. In the end, they lost everything. The defeat of the Allied forces in Tanmu County was like the first card in a domino. The entire situation in Liizhou collapsed. Although Wei Zhang was a fierce general, he could only obediently surrender in the face of a pincer attack from 3 divisions. The battle continued until the end of June. Only then did Thunder Province was basically conquered. Thunder Province was about to welcome a new master. To be continued. Chapter 397. On the 20th of June, Ouyang Shua arrived at Liizhou. In Liizhou County, Ouyang Shua held a temporary military conference to arrange the post-war affairs. Secretary Lang Bai Nanpu stood behind Ouyang Shua. On the left side of the hall, General Bai Qi sat at the head of the table, followed by the 4 division commanders. On the right side of the hall, there were 4 bureau chiefs. Other than them, there was no one else. As soon as the meeting began, the secretary, Lang Bai Nanpu, read out a series of commendations. Edict. The Dragon Xiang Army's 2nd Division galloped unhindered and fought in the north and south, strengthening our military might. Division Commander Luo Shixin is specially conferred the title of Soaring Eagle General. The rest of the soldiers of the 2nd Division will be rewarded. Luo Shixin knelt on one knee and said emotionally, "Thank you, Marquis, for the rewards." In the Battle of Tanmu County, if it wasn't for the 2 ND Division's rapid advance, the outcome would have been different. Luo Shixin's contribution in the Battle of Liizhou cannot be ignored. It was appropriate for him to be conferred the title of Soaring Eagle General. Edict. The Dragon Xiang Army's 4th Division is brave and skillful in battle, sweeping the north and strengthening our military might. Division Commander Mu Ging is specially conferred the title of Xianwei General. The rest of the soldiers of the 4th Division will be rewarded. Mu Guiying stepped out and thanked. Edict. The Tiger Brave Army's 1st Division is unyielding in the face of adversity, sweeping the south and strengthening our military might. Division Commander Fan Lihua is specially conferred the title of Zhaolai General. The rest of the soldiers will be rewarded. Fan Lihua also stepped out and thanked, but her expression was somewhat unnatural. Of the 3 armies, only the Southern Army was ambushed. How could the proud Fan Lihua not be embarrassed? At this point, the 4 division commanders that fought in Liizhou were all conferred the title of Rank 5 General. After the rewards, the 4 bureau chiefs reported the results of the battle in Liizhou. The first to report was naturally the head of military affairs, Du Ruhui. In the Battle of Liizhou, the 4 divisions lost a total of 6,400 men, 7,500 lightly injured, and 1,500 heavily injured. Hearing the report, Ouyang Shua frowned. He didn't expect Liizhou to be such a tough nut to crack, causing the Expeditionary Army to suffer such heavy losses. The post-war pension alone would probably cost more than 20,000 gold coins. Du Ruhui continued. According to the statistics of the Military Affairs Department, we have captured more than 114,300 prisoners of war in this battle. Among them, more than 15,000 are seriously injured and have been arranged to be discharged. The 10 captives of war had to be settled in time. Otherwise, just the food supply alone would be an astronomical number. How are the quality of the captives? Ouyang Shua asked. Du Ruhui heard this and said in a deep voice, "It's not very optimistic. Not to mention that the prisoners of war were basically from the city defense forces and lacked actual combat experience. What's worse is that after this battle, some of the soldiers are already tired of fighting. I'm afraid it's not appropriate to force them to stay in the army. Ouyang Shuo nodded his head and said, since it's like this, then we need to select the best of the best. Those who don't meet the standards or are tired of fighting should be retired as soon as possible so that Thunder State can resume production. Understood. Let me think about it. Ouyang Shuo pondered for a moment before he raised his head and said, the selected prisoners of war are divided into two categories. The first is the city defense forces, and the second is the field army. Here, Ouyang Shuo turned to look at Fan Zhongyin and said, Thunder State will be established as Thunder State County. 5 prefectures will be set up around 5 third-class counties. Thunder Mountain Prefecture, Hengshan Prefecture, Kamsi Prefecture, Qiantang Prefecture, and Yanluo Prefecture. The remaining 22 counties will be divided into the 5 prefectures according to their geographical location. Fan Zhongyin nodded his head solemnly. This was really troublesome. 1 county governor, 5 prefectural magistrates, and 22 county magistrates would be appointed in one go. Ouyang Shuo looked at Du Ruhui again and said, according to the unified organization of Shanghai City, each county will have a city defense battalion. Each prefecture will have a city guard brigade, and each county will have a garrison division. In total, the city defense forces alone will have 37,000 people. As for the field army, 2 divisions will be organized. 1 division will be added to the Bright Tiger Legion and given the designation of Bright Tiger Legion 4th Division. The other division will be temporarily named the 1st Independent Division. Du Ruhui nodded. According to the Marquis' arrangement, more than 36,000 people would be dismissed. This batch of disbanded soldiers would be turned into true reserve soldiers. Reducing the expenditure was another source of income. Ouyang Shuo looked at Bai Qi and Du Ruhui and said, do you have any recommendations for the 3 division commanders? In this battle, they had captured a total of 3 historical generals. They were Chao Yin, Wei Zhong, and Bailey Shi, which was just right. The crux of the problem was, first, whether it was appropriate to use a surrendered general as a division commander. Second, which general would be appointed as the division commander. These were all questions that needed to be considered. Among the 3 divisions, the garrison division had the lowest status. In addition, the newly formed Bright Tiger Legion 3rd Division still lacked a division commander. It seemed that there were still not enough generals. All of a sudden, the hall became quiet. This was the first time that Ouyang Shuo consulted the opinions of the division commander candidates in public and did not make an arbitrary decision. Du Ruhui glanced at Bai Qi and said first, reporting to the Marquis, regarding the garrison division commander candidates, this humble subject thinks that it is more appropriate to promote one of the brigade commanders. Kuming's words are reasonable. Ouyang Shuo nodded. Indeed, the Thunder State Garrison Division was responsible for guarding Thunder State County. Other than being responsible for the county's defense, they also had a hidden mission, which was to suppress any unstable factors in the county. In this kind of situation, it was not appropriate to use a local general from Thunder State. The division commander of the Thunder State Garrison Division did not seem important, but it was actually very important. Ouyang Shuo looked at Bai Qi and said, the Garrison Division commander candidate will be chosen from the brigade commanders who performed well in the Battle of Thunder State. Who does the great general think is the most suitable? As the commander-in-chief of the Battle of Thunder State, Bai Qi naturally had the most say. Hearing this, the other 4 division commanders also looked at Bai Qi nervously. If the recommended brigade commander came from their division, it would naturally be a great honor and affirmation. Bai Qi heard this and thought for a moment before slowly saying, this general thinks that Zhao Yan of the 1st Brigade of the Bright Tiger Legion 1st Division is a suitable candidate. Good, then it is Zhao Yan. This time, Ouyang Shuo fully trusted Bai Qi's judgment. After deciding on the division commander of the Thunder State Garrison Division, Ouyang Shuo had a plan for Chao Yao and the other 2. He said, decree, Chao Yao will be the division commander of the Bright Tiger Legion 3rd Division. Bailey Shi will be the division commander of the Bright Tiger Legion 4th Division. Wei Zhong will be the division commander of the Independent 1st Division. Yes, Du Ruhui couldn't help but sigh in admiration at the Marquis's appointment. The 3rd Division was a mountainous division. Although the deputy division commander, Shanju, was brave and fierce, he still lacked some strategy. Having a military-type general, Cao Yao, be the division commander of the 3rd Division was undoubtedly a good move. The two of them, one civil and one military, were a perfect match. It seemed that the Marquis had high hopes for this young general, Shanju, to specially arrange a good teacher for him. Marquis, speaking of Cao Yao, this general has something to report. Speak. After Cao Yao was captured, he tried to commit suicide several times to show his determination. I'm afraid it won't be a simple matter to persuade Cao Yu to surrender and have him willingly take up his post, Du Ruhui said. Oh, there's such a thing. Ouyang Shuo raised his eyebrows. It seems that Cao Yao's master is an extraordinary person. To be able to obtain such support from his subordinates, he is willing to die for his honor. If I remember correctly, Cao Yao is a general of Yanluo County. Yes, the lord of Yanluo County is called the evildoer Yanhua. He also has a civil official under him, Bao Shuya. The one who spoke was the head of the administration, Fan Zhongyan. This is interesting. The Thunder Province is indeed a place with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Ouyang Shuo smiled and said, among the civil officials captured this time, besides Bao Shuya, are there any others? Yes. Fan Zhongyan nodded and said, besides Bao Shuya, there are also Zhang Wenzhong and He Shiwen. Ouyang Shuo had no impression of these two people. This was not surprising. During the spring and autumn warring states period, there were more than 100 famous people. Regarding these two people, this humble subject knows a thing or two. Fan Zhongyan was different from Ouyang Shuo. He was well-read and had a deep understanding of history. Oh, why don't you tell us about them? Let's talk about Zhang Wenzhong first. This person was a minister of the state of Lu during the spring and autumn warring states period. He was the Duke of Lu, Duke Min, Duke Shi, and Duke Wan. Zhang Wenzhong was appointed during a time of crisis. He was open-minded and abolished the customs to facilitate business. He was knowledgeable and did not adhere to common etiquette. He held an important position and was fair in rewards and punishments. He accepted good advice and was not ashamed to ask his subordinates. Ouyang Shuo nodded. It seemed that this person was a good civil official. Let's talk about Shiwen. This person was a musician. During the spring and autumn warring states period, he could be considered a master. Fan Zhongyan only introduced Shiwen in a few words. He knew that the Marquis would not be interested. Sure enough, Ouyang Shuo only nodded. For the territory, a musician could only be assigned to teach in the southwest Great Hall. For a great lord like Ouyang Shuo, it was not worth paying attention to. While Fan Zhongyan was introducing Zhang Wenzhong and Shiwen, Bai Qi's expression was a bit strange. Hearing Fan Zhongyan mention Yanluo County, Bai Qi remembered the battle report that he had thrown to the corner. Bai Qi's memory was amazing. He only needed to glance at the battle report to know the gist of it. The commander of the 1st Brigade of the Imperial Guard Division had reported to him about the abnormality in Yanluo County. Wasn't the strangest of them the Lord of Yanluo County, Smoke Demon? Thinking of this, Bai Qi said, reporting to the Marquis, if we want to convince Cao Yuan, the breakthrough point is the Lord of Yanluo County, Smoke Demon. What do you mean? Bai Qi repeated the battle report, picking out the key points. Is there such a strange thing? Ouyang Shuo's interest was completely hooked. He said with a smile, it seems that I have to meet this lord. Not to mention Smoke Demon. Ouyang Shuo coveted Bao Shuya. To be continued. Chapter 398. After listening to Bai Qi's words, Ouyang Shuo thought for a moment and said, Men, here, take a team to Yanluo County and bring the fireworks genius and Bao Shuya to Thunder Mountain City. Yes, sir. Fan Zhongyan's eyes narrowed. Is the Marquis planning to make Thunder Mountain City the administrative center of Thunder Prefecture? Not bad. Among the 5 prefectural cities, Thunder Mountain City and Yanluo City were located in the central region of Liuzhou County. Compared to Thunder Mountain City, Yanluo City's construction was even better. In the end, the Marquis chose Thunder Mountain City, which was somewhat unexpected. The administrative center of a county was extremely important. Ouyang Shuo did not pay attention to everyone's astonishment. Decree. Bao Shuya is appointed as Leizhou County's prefect, and Zhang Wenzhong is appointed as Lianzhou County's Duanren Manor's prefect. The former magistrate of Duanren Prefecture, Zhou Haichun, will be transferred to Leizhou County's Leishan Prefecture. Fan Zhongyan suddenly understood. So this was the root cause. The appointment of Bao Shuya as the Liuzhou County governor was not out of his expectations. With Bao Shuya's ability, it was more than enough for him to govern a county. Of course, this was also related to the fact that the territory did not have a powerful official at the moment. Even so, the place where Bao Shuya was appointed must avoid Yanluo City. It could be said that Yanluo City's failure to be selected was somewhat of an innocent bystander. Politics was cruel sometimes. At the same time, Marquis Jun transferred his trusted aide, Zhou Haichun, to be the magistrate of Thunder Mountain Prefecture, further restricting Bao Shuya. There was both trust and checks and balances. It seemed contradictory, but it was actually ingenious. The Marquis was becoming more and more proficient in using people. Ouyang Shuo continued. The magistrates of the other 4 prefectures in Liuzhou County will be selected from the local officials. Half of the 22 county magistrates will be promoted locally, and the other half will be promoted by the officials of Lianzhou County. Yes, sir. In this way, not only did they take care of the local interests, but they also gave the low-level officials in the base camp a chance to be promoted. These officials would also popularize the governance model of Lianzhou County and Liuzhou County. According to Fan Zhongyan's feedback, there were still some good officials in Liuzhou County. They all held important positions in the original territory and were the most important left and right arms of the original lord. Ouyang Shuo naturally had to boldly promote and appoint these people. Of course, the most basic cross-appointment was unavoidable. Apart from that, they were also subject to strict scrutiny by the Internal Affairs Department. With just a few words, Ouyang Shuo had decided on the appointment and dismissal of the main officials of the prefecture. It seemed casual, but in reality, the most basic framework and principles had already been set. The rest of the work would be done by the Administrative Bureau. Given Fan Zhongyan's ability, he would not say anything more. After discussing the appointment and removal of officials, Cui Yingyu, the head of the financial department, continued with her report. Ouyang Shuo raised his head and saw the bitter expression on Yingyu's face. He could roughly guess that Liuzhou County's economic situation wasn't too optimistic. The original economy of Liuzhou County can only be said to be barely passable. After this battle, the situation became even worse. Let's not talk about the damage the war caused to the city. Worst of all, when the Lord fled, he took the entire territory's free funds with him. There isn't a single copper coin in the treasury of Liuzhou County. At this point, Yingyu let out a sigh and said, "The finance department has roughly calculated that in order to complete the reconstruction of the county and restore the economy of Liuzhou County, we will need to invest at least 100,000 gold coins in financial support." As soon as the words were spoken, the crowd in the hall gasped. Ouyang Shuo's expression also gradually darkened. For the Battle of Liuzhou, Shanghai City had already spent more than 100,000 gold coins before the war. Adding on the post-war compensation, layoffs, and military expansion, it was another large military expenditure. Ouyang Shuo was still thinking that after occupying Liuzhou County, he could make up for this financial hole. Who would have thought that he would not get a gold mine, but a burden? Is it really that bad? Yingyu firmly nodded and said, "This is still the most conservative estimate. Apart from the restoration of the city, if the 5 prefectural cities still need to be expanded, it will be even more difficult to build the outer walls. The 5 prefectural cities must be expanded, especially Thunder Mountain City. As a prefectural government, if the area was less than 100 square kilometers, it wouldn't be presentable." Seeing the Marquis's expression turn cold, Cui Yingyu carefully said, "Of course, the fundamentals of Liuzhou County's economy are still very good. As long as we get through this crisis, the future financial income will be very considerable. Apart from that, Lijo County is close to the sea. The already developed shipbuilding and salt industry in Lianzhou County can be directly copied here, including the special industries such as silkworm breeding. They can also be transplanted. Not enough. Ouyang Shuo shook his head and said, just transplanting the industries is too conservative. The finance department needs to fully tap into Lijo County's potential and develop new special industries to open up new sources of income. Understood. Ouyang Shuo's expression softened a little and said, since things have come to this, we can only think of ways to raise funds. We can borrow from the Bank of the Four Seas. If it's still not enough, we can borrow from the major chambers of commerce. As the Bank of the Four Seas' reputation continued to rise, the amount of deposits it had absorbed was not small. What Ouyang Shuo meant by borrowing from the Bank of the Four Seas was that Lijo County would use its future financial income as collateral and pay a certain amount of interest at the same time. It seemed absurd, but in reality, it was all too common financial behavior in the real world. Meng Jida, the head shopkeeper of the Bank of the Four Seas, was a financial tycoon in real life. Ouyang Shuo believed that he would be able to handle it properly. Chambers of Commerce? Yes. Ouyang Shuo nodded and said, inform the major chambers of commerce that as long as they are willing to help the territory get through this crisis, they will be allowed to set up branches in Lijo County. Ouyang Shuo believed that the major chambers of commerce would not be able to see the market potential of Lijo County. As long as there was profit to be made, the major chambers of commerce would not mind being generous. Moreover, Ouyang Shuo was only borrowing money, so he would pay interest. He was not asking for donations from the chambers of commerce. Yingyu's eyes lit up and she said, no problem. She thought about whether she should ask her father to provide a large amount of financial assistance to the Chui Clan Chamber of Commerce. With the help of Lianzhou County and Cliff Mountain City, the Chui Clan Chamber of Commerce have been doing very well recently. Seeing Yingyu's excited expression, Ouyang Shuo sighed. How helpless. If he told others that Shanghai City was relying on loans to survive, he reckoned that none of the allies would believe him. In the eyes of the allies, Shanghai City was the richest of the rich. It seemed that he had to speed up the development of Cliff Mountain City. Ouyang Shuo thought silently. Ouyang Shuo had to think of a way to raise new sources of funds from other channels. Finally, the head of the Internal Affairs Bureau, Wei Yang, reported on the investigation of Lijo County. With the capture of Lijo County, under Wei Yang's iron fist, all the unstable factors on the surface were basically swept away. The difficult part was the forces that took the opportunity to hide in the dark. It was not easy to deal with these guys. Among these people, there were die-hard loyalists of the original territory, merchants who had lost their business because of the war, and civilians whose relatives had died in battle. This task required the persistence of the Internal Affairs Bureau. Fortunately, with Wei Yang's ability, under his leadership, the Internal Affairs Bureau would definitely test their skills in Lijo. Any unstable factors that attempted to disrupt the development of Lijo County would be brutally suppressed. In this regard, Ouyang Shuo's attitude was very firm. After Wei Yang finished his report, the entire military and political meeting came to an end. In the next few days, Ouyang Shuo personally oversaw Thunder Mountain City and met with a group of generals and officials. Especially the 4 division commanders and 5 prefectures that had just been appointed were of utmost importance. On this day, Ouyang Shuo was meeting with Wei Zhang when he suddenly heard a system announcement. System announcement. Congratulations to Snow Rose for leading the elite team of Fallen Snow Rose Mercenary Group for clearing the public secret realm, Nanshan Grotto Heaven's secret realm, for the first time. The reward is 10,000 reputation points. Congratulations, player. Compared to the promise of clearing the secret realm by his aunt, Lin Jing, within a week, they were a full month late. Thinking about it, when killing the last big boss, the elite team must have encountered unimaginable difficulties. Once the announcement came out, adventure-type players were in an uproar. Just the words public secret realm was enough to make adventure-type players go crazy. Public secret realm. This was the first public secret realm since the system opened it. Players went around asking where exactly was the Nanshan Grotto Heaven secret realm. The members of Fallen Snow Rose mercenary group were naturally the ones who were asked the most. Unfortunately, the matter of Cliff State had always been kept a secret. Ordinary members did not know. In the end, there were people with remarkable abilities who found out that the Nanshan Grotto Heaven was located in Cliff Mountain City. In an instant, Cliff Mountain City became the focal point of the players. Some players wanted to teleport to Cliff Mountain City, but they found out that the teleportation formation in Cliff Mountain City was only open to certain people. This meant that ordinary players could not teleport to Cliff Mountain City. As for taking a boat there, stop joking. In an instant, the forum was in an uproar. The players were clamoring on the forum, asking for Cliff Mountain City to be open to other players. Some uneducated haters even started cursing on the forum, saying that it was natural for Cliff Mountain City to be open to them. In this regard, Cliff Mountain City was silent. Without Ouyang Shua's instructions, no one dared to open the teleportation formation. The next day, Ouyang Shua issued an order that the current Cliff Mountain City was only open to members of the League of Mountains and Seas Guild Alliance. As for other players, temporarily not. Ouyang Shua was not a philanthropist. According to the news from Lin Jing, after clearing the Nanshan Grotto Heaven, the tactician's professional suit would be dropped. However, the two big guilds, Breeze Pavilion and Tingyu Tower, mainly relied on tacticians. As for the Fallen Snow Rose mercenary group, it was a comprehensive guild with many tacticians. At this time, it was natural to satisfy the internal needs of the alliance. Such internal benefits of the alliance helped to enhance the cohesion and sense of belonging of the alliance members. It was foreseeable that in the future, the members of the three big guilds would pour into Cliff Mountain City in large numbers. For this reason, Ouyang Shua sent a letter to Songjia, asking her to stay in Cliff Mountain City and coordinate the affairs of the adventurers in Cliff Mountain City. To be continued. Chapter 399. On June 25th, Bao Shuya and Smoke Freak were brought to Thunder Mountain City by the guards. As soon as they met, Smoke Freak spoke first. Marquis Lian Zhou, you must have doubts about me? That's right, Ouyang Shua said calmly. The reason is simple. Smoke Freak sighed and said, if I can't be an overlord, I'll be an arm of an overlord. This is my way of doing things. Ouyang Shua nodded and didn't express his opinion. Why are you so confident that I'll put you in an important position? In the eyes of the players, Ouyang Shua was far from being open-minded. His attitude toward the players could even be considered as harsh. The incident in the Cliff Mountain Grotto Heaven secret realm a few days ago was the best proof of this. Marquis Lian Zhou, why don't you check my attributes? Smoke Freak smiled confidently and opened his attributes to Ouyang Shua. Ouyang Shua looked up and narrowed his eyes. Smoke Freak was also a general. His other attributes were ordinary, but there were two that surprised Ouyang Shua: the talent Sea Battle Expertise and the king-level skill Surging Wave Scripture. Sea Battle Expertise. During sea battles, increase the range of cannons, bows, and other long-range weapons by 10. Increase the speed of warships by 20. Increase the defense of warships by 25, and reduce the probability of warships being sunk by 15. It was a very heaven-defying talent, and it was almost tailor-made for naval generals. No wonder Smoke Freak was so confident. With such a talent, it would be a pity for him to be a lord. Ouyang Shua couldn't imagine what kind of lord he would be if the Ming Dynasty Warship Manufacturing Manual fell into the hands of Smoke Freak during the auction. Not only that, although Ouyang Shua couldn't check the attributes of Smoke Freak's main skill, Surging Wave Scripture, he could tell from the name that it would complement his talent, Sea Battle Expertise. This person was lucky to be able to find such a matching, genuine secret manual. Tell me your conditions. Ouyang Shua had to admit that he was tempted. The naval generals were the weakness of Shanghai City, and Ouyang Shua didn't want to let any of them go. The strange thing was that Ouyang Shua had never heard of Smoke Freak in his previous life. He didn't know if he was too low-key or if he had been KO'd in the early stages of the game. As long as it wasn't someone with a bad reputation, Ouyang Shua had the confidence to control it. I heard that Shanghai City has established the North Sea Bay Fleet. I only hope that I can serve in the fleet. That's simple. It's that simple, Smoke Freak said frankly. I'd rather roam the sea than be a lord. Rather than being limited to the civil war in the China region, it's better to attack other regions. Ouyang Shua was speechless. The fact that Smoke and Fire Demon was not famous in his previous life was probably related to this. All right, I agree. This time, it was Smoke and Fire's turn to be surprised. He did not expect Ouyang Shua to agree so readily. Surprised? Not bad. Smoke Freak nodded and said, the rumored Marquis of Lian Province isn't a lord who trusts players so easily. Smoke Demon spoke tactfully, but in truth, he was implying that Ouyang Shua was too suspicious and wary of the players. Ouyang Shua faintly smiled and said, times change. Shanghai City has established a complete system. If you don't behave, I have my own ways to deal with you. Smoke Demon was embarrassed. There was no need to be so straightforward. Of course, you'll have to change your position. The North Sea Bay Fleet is a coastal fleet. With your expertise, you're more suitable to serve in the Cliff Mountain Fleet. The Cliff Mountain Fleet. It was already remarkable that Smoke Demon could find out about the North Sea Bay Fleet, but he knew nothing about the Cliff Mountain Fleet. Ouyang Shua explained, the commander of the Cliff Mountain Fleet's first fleet is Kai Mao, a famous naval general during the Three Kingdoms period. You'll be Kai Mao's deputy for now. No problem. Smoke Demon's eyes lit up. He was not dismayed by his low position. He knew that although he was talented, he lacked actual combat experience. It was great to be able to serve Kai Mao, who was experienced in naval battles, as a deputy. With this thought in mind, Smoke Demon bowed and said, greetings, Marquis. At this point, he was truly convinced of Ouyang Shua's abilities. He did not doubt those he used, and did not employ those he doubted. Such magnanimity was not something an ordinary lord could compare to. There was no doubt that this choice would be the turning point in Smoke Demon's life. The future admiral of the Navy had stepped onto a stage that was most suitable for him, and he would shine brightly. While Ouyang Shua was busy stabilizing the situation in Liuzhou County, the Yellow Turban Rebellion in the north was facing its end. As early as the beginning of June, Di Chun began to plan to encircle the Yellow Turban Rebellion. At that time, the Battle of Liuzhou, initiated by Shanghai City, had just begun. Naturally, Di Chun had no time to attend to other matters, so he flatly refused the Liuzhou Lord's request for help. After half a month of repeated negotiations, Di Chun used all his means and even used the power of his family to successfully form a temporary alliance with the lords of more than 30 territories in the capital. The lords knew that cooperating with Handan County was tantamount to asking a tiger for its skin. However, in the face of the Yellow Turban Rebellion, which was growing stronger by the day, they could only unite and get through this crisis first. After all, if they were eliminated by the Yellow Turban Rebellion, everything would be for naught. It had to be said that Di Chin's methods of attracting players far surpassed Ouyang Shua's. With peerless elegance acting as the middleman, the alliance went very smoothly. On the 16th of June, the capital's allied forces mobilized 150,000 soldiers, led by the old General Yin Pe, to encircle and suppress the increasingly rampant Yellow Turban Rebellion. At that time, the Yellow Turban Rebellion had already wiped out the capital's Zhengding prefecture and was preparing to expand outwards. The 120,000 Yellow Turban Rebellion soldiers split into 4 groups and attacked from all directions. Like the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom's rebel army, the Yellow Turban Rebel Army also had bright generals. Other than Zhang Jiao, Zhang Bao, and Zhang Liang, there was also Zhang Mansion, Bokai, Han Zhong, Yi, and Guanhai. In addition, Zhang Jiao had historical memories, so he was originally ambitious. Who would have thought that the Allied forces would give Zhang Jiao a fatal blow at the most unlikely time? Taking advantage of the time when the Yellow Turban rebel army was divided, the Allied army secretly assembled. Under Lien Po's command, they gathered their superior military strength and, with the momentum of Mount Tai, used only 4 days to destroy the Yellow Turban's northern and eastern armies. The northern armies commanding General Zhang Mansheng died in battle, while the eastern armies commanding General Zhang Liang and Deputy General Bo Kai were captured. At the same time, some Yellow Turban generals were captured, and they were divided up by the feudal lords. With a victory in the first battle, the Allied forces' morale soared. Under Lien Po's instigation, the Allied forces ignored the rebels' southern and western armies and headed straight for the Yellow Turban's lair, Jingding City. The ones in charge of Jingding City were the heavenly General Zhang Jiao and the defending General Yi. The general who was captured and killed because of Tang Zhou's informant, naturally became Zhang Jiao's confidant and led 30,000 troops to defend Jingding City. Even if Zhang Jiao had historical memories, he was powerless when his lair was in danger. Secretly anxious, he could only recall the southern and western armies and order them to return to rescue the emperor. Unexpectedly, Zhang Jiao's action was exactly what Lien Po wanted. The reason why Lien Po besieged Jingding City was precisely because he wanted to besiege the enemy and attack the reinforcements. Just like that, a tragedy happened. The southern and western armies that rushed over were ambushed by the Allied forces halfway and caught off guard. In just 2 days, the southern and western armies were defeated one after another. The southern armies commanding General Zhang Bao, Deputy General Bo Kai, the western armies commanding General Guan Hai, and a group of Yellow Turban generals were either killed or captured. In this battle, the Allied forces won a complete victory. Not only did they subdue more than a dozen rare generals, but they also reorganized tens of thousands of Yellow Turban prisoners of war. The Allied forces' strength did not decrease, but instead increased, and their morale reached a peak. Naturally, Dichin's prestige in the capital also rose along with it. The only disharmony was probably Wanshi County, which also belonged to the capital. Because Wanshi County belonged to the Mountain and Sea Alliance, it was naturally excluded from the Allied forces by Dichin. In this battle of encirclement and annihilation, Wanshi County played the role of a spectator. After annihilating the southern and western armies, the Allied forces officially besieged Jingding City. At the top of Jingding City, Zhang Jiao looked at the endless army outside the city, his face pale. He did not expect that even being reborn could not save the Yellow Turban's fate. Fate was so cruel. General Yi walked over and said, "General Tiangong, while the enemy's encirclement has not completely closed, I will protect you and evacuate. Even if I die, this general will definitely protect you." Escape? Escape to where? Zhang Jiao's eyes were filled with despair, and he said mournfully, "Even if I escape, I will still be living. What difference is there from death? Where there is life, there is hope." Zhang Jiao shook his head and said, "No need to persuade me. Let me live and die with the city." General Yi was speechless. On the 22nd of June, the Allied forces launched a general attack on Jingding City. The Yellow Turban soldiers of Jingding City faced death with equanimity. The hundreds of thousands of people in the city were loyal followers of the Yellow Turban, and they were united. In this battle, the Yellow Turban army showed the Allied forces what was called fanaticism. Under the Allied forces' fierce attack, coupled with the catapults and scaling ladders, Jingding City held out for a full 5 days before it was breached. The Allied forces' losses in the siege exceeded the previous total. General Tiangong, Zhang Jiao, and General Yi all died in battle. Along with them, there were more than 20,000 Yellow Turban soldiers and tens of thousands of people. The tragedy of the battle was daunting. With the fall of Jingding City, it was announced that the Yellow Turban Rebellion, one of the 4 major rebel groups in the China region, had officially disappeared from the game stage. As soon as the news came out, the China region was in an uproar. In less than half a year, the Yellow Turban Rebellion was annihilated, which was really admirable. Di Chen's prestige soared, catching up to Ouyang Shuo. With the contribution points from this battle, Di Chun was promoted to a third-rank marquis in one fell swoop. Handan County becoming a county city was just around the corner. To be continued. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.